everyone. Nice to, all of you around the room are people we have met over the last few months. Some like BIAL now, we know them for many years. And so thank you, first of all, to BIAL to host us all today. Really a group of fellow actors, fellow champions, looking at how can we supply, scale the supply of sustainable aviation fuels to airlines and airports in India, Europe, and around the world. Just to give you all a quick background, that we've been speaking to all of you, but I think some of you are new to this discussion. So maybe just do a quick recap. So the EU delegation in India, represented here by Pierrick, launched a project in September last year with the vision of building an EU-India innovation cooperation platform in the biofuel sector, and also wanting to, connect it with the EU's goals as well as EU-India goals, wanted to set up a platform focused on aviation and maritime. So that was the objective. So what we did is, they appointed two experts, Patrick Trehan here and myself, to really build this platform with the aim to first map the ecosystem. Let's know who's there, who's out there, who's doing what, etc. And then after that, really bring together the people to speak together, and involve also the governments in the G2G, look at awareness, and also B2B, how can we really connect the supply chain at a B2B level as well. So the first few months between September and now, we spent doing the mapping. So we've met, a lot of you individually, talked to you, visited you, had multiple rounds of discussions, and then we planned to really do a set of group meetings focused on awareness, meeting with the government as well in around the India Energy Week. As well, it was an opportune time because many of the oil companies are around here. That's also the reason why none of them are here at this meeting today, because when we kept changing the time, they are also very engaged, in their own pavilions out there. But so anyway, so we brought together now at least those we know and those who can be here online on the EU-India supply chain for sustainable aviation fuels. And this will be one of our first meetings at this scale, really bringing together, today, in today's meeting, we brought together first a roundtable to focus on the emissions and SAP readiness of airports, airlines, and engine manufacturers. And then the second half of the discussion, we look at barriers and enablers that occur throughout the SAP supply chain. So for those of you who were not there yesterday, we had a G2G involving the Department of Biotechnology, the Ministry of Petroleum and Gas, who couldn't be there, but we kind of structured the program around them. We talked about mission innovation. We talked about EU Horizon Europe. The funding, from there, and also the number of the co-funding activities coming from the government of India side. We had the Brazilian government talk about their programs around the biofuels with India. The US government, US Department of Energy was also there, and they all kind of talked about how we should work together really for the global interplay. How can US, Brazil, India, EU, other countries as well come together on a platform like this? And then we had some very interesting discussions from the feedstock, suppliers, the supply chain bit, some of the biofuel producers as well. And then, so now that was yesterday, we will be creating a report summary, which you will all receive. And but today's discussion is very specific. It's really started because we made a call that started this project to Bengaluru Airport, and we said, are you guys doing anything in sustainable aviation fuel? And then, as usual, they were already, on the runway waiting to take off, as they always are on most sustainability initiatives. And that's when, we talked in length about, the background, what are the opportunities and challenges they're facing. I'm not going to get into that because somebody more able, Mr. Satyaki Raghunath, the Chief Strategy and Development Officer at Bengaluru International Airport, will share, where they are and what is their vision and what's the call to action. from the airport side. So with these words, Satyaki, over to you.
Thank you, Leena. Welcome, good afternoon to everyone, and great pleasure and privilege to have all of you guys here in Bangalore Airport. Just to very pleased to say so. And I think Leena has actually overplayed my role and relevance in this completely. I just happened to be the person who signed the document for Bangalore International Airport as we sort of signed the Green Skies MOU and aviation. And Lakshminarayan and his team here who lead the engineering wing, sustainability function are the main drivers behind everything that we do on sustainability. But I think from a wider perspective of just Bangalore Airport, but Indian aviation, I think we've seen 2 decades of absolutely spectacular growth as far as aviation is concerned. And from when I first started working in aviation, which was almost 23 years ago, where we are today, what has happened? The face of Indian aviation and the face of global aviation has changed. And my understanding is that there are about 3.5 billion people in the world. And we had, pre-COVID, we had about 8 billion passenger trips across the world on aviation. And aviation contributes somewhere between 2 and 3% of greenhouse gas emissions globally. And I think every one of us is sort of very committed to the fact that we have to reduce that impact. Decarbonization is no more sort of an option. We've got to figure out how to get there. And SAF is one of those key areas where we have to focus over the course of the next 10, 15 years in order to make sure that aviation in general becomes much more sustainable. And again, I can't claim to be an expert at all, and all of you are far more qualified than I am to speak about this. But my understanding is that there are 4 key aspects from a staff perspective. The first part is on the feedstock in terms of the availability and of course availability what we can use feedstock. The second part is about the blending and the certification, as I understand it, and I think there is the STS, which I think that's what it's called. The third piece is, of course, the logistics in terms of getting it to the airport or getting it sort of that facility that we have, and that's where I suppose we come in as an airport. And the final part itself is the actual logistics, supply, downstream supplying to the planes. So if you take sort of that as the context, I think from our perspective, we were very committed from day one. We realized that the aviation industry is moving towards SAF in the short to medium term, even though there might be other solutions like hydrogen and electric sort of post 2030. But I think there's been a general commitment that we will all sort of 10% of all aviation, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be driven through SAF by a certain date. So from that perspective, I think all of us are very committed. And here at Bangalore Airport, what we're trying to figure out with our partners is what sort of facilities will we need to have at the airport in order to make sure that we can also enable aircraft or airlines who are committed to SAF and who are having the right equipment and the right infrastructure to be able to use SAF flying can thrive and work here at the airport. So from our perspective at Bangalore Airport, our commitment is to make sure that we have the right facilities built. And we understand that it can either be integrated using commingling of few facilities and the hydrogen system and sort of supply, or it would be something that's sort of independent. We would prefer it to be commingled and sort of integrated. That would be our first choice. But I think a lot of it will also depend on the other factors that are sort of in play here. But I'm very glad to, and Leena, if you remember our conversation last week, I think I was telling Leena and the team that we are actually the smallest of the players in this overall ecosystem, because I think at the end of the day, the OEMs, the engine suppliers, the airlines, all of them have to get together to make sure that from a financial perspective this works. And finally, at the end of the day, the success or failure of this, and we have to assume that we have to drive towards success, but will be predicated on the fact that costs of doing this can be brought within means that the airlines would say are okay, and it will be viable to them. So I think from that perspective, I'm exceptionally thrilled that we are hosting this panel discussion and the seminar on the GPI. And I think the fact that we have the India Energy Week, and so many of you who sort of come from the industry, who are all joiners of the industry and have done a lot of work as far as these areas are concerned, are here with us. And it's great to see, members from academia, from sort of industry, from ministry, etc. Because we need all the help that we can get, to be honest. And everything that we can do collectively to drive towards a future which is far more sustainable is something that, I mean, we are not just making lip service to, but we can actually get there. So I think, welcome once again. And, I just want to listen to all of you talk, because I'm really not the expert here, and it would be really good to understand first what the challenges might be or what the opportunities are and how we can get there collectively. So thank you so much once again for the opportunity, and I look forward to this discussion.
Yes, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much to welcome us here. So I will briefly introduce myself. I am head of department at the UNSC in the IORA, actually precisely 1 year and 2 days ago. I had arrived on 1st of February last year. But today it's a specific attempt. So I want to tell you how I'm going to work. We have a certain funding program from the EU. Actually, we have European colleagues here. It's extremely rare that we cooperate outside of EU, especially with India, on a fundamental issue on research. And even more rare that we involve business on both sides. But this is something that I wish to target. Especially in this domain of biofuel, which is still controversial in Europe. You have also a different setting in India. Just to tell you a second message, I'm going to work with the ministries, and John helped me to reach out Ministry of Petroleum. We have reached out Ministry of Science. So DBT, DST are on board. And for me as government officer, it's important because they are going to co-fund. Actually, speaking on money, we currently have money available for calls. So how the EU is structured. We call on a certain topic. For example, now we have 10 million euros available on demonstration for aviation and shipping. We are going to have 10 million euro again in 2 months on advanced biofuel, 10 million again next year. So the money is there. The idea of the group today is to come with the help of experts, Patrick and Lina, with 2-3 very concise points. And Patrick, thank you very much. She has already prepared a kind of a plan with the 3 axes where we need to go, because then I need to come back to my ministry and to say, okay, we should target this with such a timeline and such amount of money. So this is the first meeting, as Gina said. Probably we need more meetings, but also the objective of today was that each of us speak. So I will moderate a little bit the first session, and I will start with Anjan. If you could give us a little bit your views. The idea of we have 2 sessions. Maybe we have a little technical break, as we see in Europe in the middle. But the idea is everybody speak, and everybody speak about 3-4 minutes, not too long, so that we have time. We can interact after the end of each presentation, of course, and that's the end. So thank you very much. I know a few colleagues around the table, Ramakrishna from BTC, Minja, and probably you are from Airbus, colleagues from Airbus. But it's very nice to have a small, to have a small team. Anjan, the floor is yours. I don't know if you have any slide or you speak.
Thank you, Gary. I deliberately did not bring slides because I have seen that in the formal discussions, perhaps it makes sense. Today, I think, in a sense, we are among friends. We are trying to create some clarity out of a very vast ocean of ambiguity. And I like the opening remarks of Mr. Satyaki because he touched upon the 4 issues that I consider important. There are 5 things. And this is not about alternate fuels, it's about alternate anything. That's what I've done most of my life as a deployment researcher. The first thing that people ask is, does it work? So does the performance match the acceptable level, not only today, but in the future? I will come to this point maybe later in the presentation. But the whole point of this certification or the AS team standard or the new IS 17081 Indian regulation, for those of you who don't know, India actually has the aviation biofuel standard, which many of you may be aware. That's the first thing. That just ensures that you have something that people are. The second is scale. I will come to the cost point in a bit, so the cost point and very nicely captured in factor summary as well is an important one. But I will have contrarian view on it. The third, so the scale is important. And in scale, the question is not how much can you get, but how much can you get when and where you need it. So it's fairly inconvenient in my mind that you take feedstock from India and you produce SAF in Singapore and then you claim it to be SAF. Because the carbon footprint of moving the feedstock from India is it's scope 3 from the point of view of the producer in Singapore, but you've actually incurred so many carbon atoms in the process. The fourth, so I've covered performance, scale, cost. The fourth, I'm not sure people discussing, I actually think that's the most important thing, is evidence-based sustainability, and I see Kiria was here, so he knows that I've been very particular that rigorous life cycle analysis should be on the table for every product that claims to be sustainable. The fifth is financing policy. I think there are people much more knowledgeable than me on that over here, but I will point out that the two single largest issues in finance and policy are the fragmentation of the supplier base if you really want large-scale supplies for SAF in India, because the average land holding for a crop in India is about under 2 hectares, whereas the average land holding in Europe is well over 100 hectares. So the nature of the supplier, if the farmer would be a supplier, is different. Therefore, the instruments required, the microfinance required, the way you want to design it is different. And we have ideas, but we will live with it. Along with money is policy. So here I will take a page out of European or American policy for a moment and say that if we look at the price of SAF in the US or in Europe, it's probably going to be about the same as it's going to be produced here, 2 to 3x of what it is. So to say that an airline in India cannot bear the cost, or that the manufacturer feels that it needs to be subsidized, I actually disagree. Because today when I buy, so if I would, for example, if my cost of SAF would double compared to normal, and I have 10% blend, that means that I have increased my cost of my fuel by
Hello, Senthil. Yeah.
if you look and go back and look at consumer behavior, and we understand the concerns of the aviation community, it is not why should somebody pay, but it's not one airline should not be singled out to pay more than the other. As long as the playing field is level. Today, nobody argues that we shouldn't buy seatbelts because we're paying more, or airbags because we're paying more. We are. No. So I feel that there needs to be a different dialogue rather than saying that SAF is expensive. We say that not having a planet is very expensive. I will leave my opening remarks at this because I think that there will be a lot of nuances to be fleshed out. But perhaps later on, if you have a discussion, so I do want to add about blending. My recommendation for BIAL, and it's considered recommendation, is keep 5 small day tanks of not more than 5,000 liters or 10,000 liters, or just a dedicated Bowser's for SAF. You can directly blend out of a Bowser into the main tank. You do not actually need to do mixing as long as the data is generated on a mixing basis. And you can create the protocols for that. The reason is that not every SAF will come with the same count. And not every SAF will come with the same casing. So when you're starting out small, I don't see the sense of having a separate SAF tank. It's just unnecessary extra cost and unnecessary extra carbon. So finally, the holy grail is not blended fuels. The holy grail is 100% drop-in SAF. You take out the SAF can go into a plane at 100% both engines. We are seeing trials happening around the world now. We do actually have a process in India that gives 100% drop-in SAF. But the certification cycle will take 2 to 3 years. I don't think that's too long because the first commercial plant in India will be up 3 years from now. We just at the IAW, we just heard that will be March or April of 2025, which will have a 20 KL per day SAF plant at Bengaluru. So we are fairly clear that the opportunities are well known. The technologies are available, and there's multiple technologies. The feedstock is available. India throws away more carbon atoms every year than we import. So as a country, we import 350 million tons of carbon atoms as petrol. So yes, petroleum as coal and as natural gas. And as a country, we throw 500 million tons of carbon atoms every year now. So the carbon atoms are there, the technologies are there. The supply chains exist but have not been matured, have not been institutionalized. I think that's our dialogue today. How to institutionalize, support, and stabilize supply chain. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Anjit. Just wanted to make a quick check. Can the online participants hear us clearly?
Yes,
Yes,
can you hear you properly? Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
we are here.
yes, we can hear very clearly. Thank you.
Yeah, same here.
Hello, everybody.
Well, it's frozen again.
Yes,
Yes.
Lina Central, can you hear us at BIAL? Your video and audio have frozen again.
I'll message.
Right.
Central, the audio is muted.
We can't hear anything.
Yeah, their audio is
No,
muted.
same here. No.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm just following up with them. Just give us a second. Sorry. This is
thank you.
Lina Central, can you hear us on the ground there? Your audio is muted. Central, can you hear us at the conference room? We can see the video now, but the
Can you hear?
Yeah, we can. Yes.
yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you now. Yeah.
Yes, now we can.
Fine. Okay, great, fantastic. Let's keep going then. Thank you, Anjan. Sorry for the interruption. And actually, Narayan, you would like to go later or go later? Okay, fine, sounds good. Just wanted to now, it was good to meet you, Muthu, few days ago, on the phone. So would love to have your comments, sir.
And just one point, if they cannot hear, then each time the speaker will move with a chair, we will put the chair next to the speaker, but you can try and.
Yeah.
It's
towards me. It's towards.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
A little bit louder.
Little bit lower. Okay. So, this initiative, SAP system was.
I suppose you take a chair and you move. next
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
mic.
I may miss,
If they can hear,
video.
fix it up.
It picks it.
We need the mic to pick it up.
No problem.
Thank
you.
Peter can connect the system, and then he has got the BIAL Wi-Fi connected. So I think that would be better rather than.
Of course, let's do that, absolutely. Let's do that, yeah.
Let him get
But you can
connected. Once
connect.
he's getting
No problem.
connected, it will be easy.
So speakers will go here.
Yeah. Thank you very much. See, myself, I'm Muthu from Delhi International Airport, GMR Group. We all know that climate change is a very important issue for us, and many ministries, NGOs, or I can say industries, including aviation, started acting on it. So, as like what BIAL is doing now, we have initiated similar exercise on sustainable aviation fuel. And since we are working closely with the French government, Group ADP is our shareholder. So we have taken up certain projects on sustainable aviation fuel in the angle of saying EU funding. So the project is already funded to the extent, and the case study we created. The case study is also approved by Ministry of Civil Aviation. So the Ministry of Civil Aviation said, while doing this study, you should involve the Dehradun Indian Institute of Petroleum, as well as DGCA and airline stakeholders as a part of this study. The study, the objective of the study is to ensure multi-factors of SAF demand for aviation is addressed. It's a study. It's not an implementation or research. It's a purely a study. So there are multiple work packages we have developed in the study. I can say main 8 work packages. The first package is focusing on purely the demand analysis. What will be the demand of SAF for the period of 2050? Since all we target 2050 as a net zero objective. So that's a demand analysis, which includes both civil aviation, partially Government of India's requirement in the order. So second work packages is the technological assessment. So we all know that the technology for SAF is controlled. It is not just freely available. There are approved technology by the National Civil Aviation Organization. As per my knowledge, there are 9 approved technology. There are another 2 coming up, including the Dehradun one. So the technological assessment to meet the volume demand. So that's the second work package. Third work package is purely on feedstock availability. So we know the demand and we know the technology, whether the feedstocks are available around us. That assessment purely across India, the feedstock assessment will be done. The fourth work package is on logistic assessment. Can we do the production of SAF near to the airport? Can we do somewhere near to the feedstock? Or can we do somewhere there are already refineries are available? Can we do? So this kind of assessment will be done. That's the fourth work packages. The fifth one is purely on policies. I know there is a policy, there is a regulation done by Ministry of Petroleum and Science, and that is a 2018. They have an objective of blending for motor vehicles. So it is not purely addressing to civil aviation. What kind of policy enhancement program one should think of? Taking inputs from DGCA, Ministry of Civil Aviation, and various knowledge partners. So that policy enhancement program, policy advocacy, that will come as a work package 5. And then work package 6 will be a business analysis in terms of overall India and in terms of the viability of SAF, the cost per unit, the demand. Overall, it will come as an assessment. And then business analysis was specific to our airports. So that will be the work package 7. And the last tour package is nothing but a kind of communication plan. Like suppose we wanted to do that study outcome, what manner, how one should communicate to all the stakeholders. So these are the activities we have brought into our packages of all 8 tour packages. It is already started. We have done some kind of assessment, and we have a knowledge partners, particularly like Airbus, Safran, Axon. They are all my knowledge partners. Total Energies, so they are also a knowledge partner. And we can say associate partners or various government authorities with this. And the lead for this project study is Group ADP as well as GMR Airports. So this is what we are doing. And it is more or less addressing to the similar angle, but I saw the 3 important portfolios which we are talking about. It's a financial instruments which we wanted to build in for this study. And this particular factor and what we are doing is not more or less same. Our objective is only on study. Your objective is exploring financial opportunities on the part of SAP overall in India. So very well we can contribute to this particular objective. In case if you wanted our update, maybe in a quarterly period or once in a yearly period or once in a year, please let us know. We can update you. So this is my input for this particular group. Thank you.
Thank you, Muthu. So now, from airports, we move to an airline. We have Kamal Ingorani, who couldn't join us physically, but he's joining us virtually. Kamal, are you in the room?
Yes, I am, Lena.
Yeah, hi, Kamal. How are you?
Hi, Lena. Hi, everybody. Dr. Ray, good afternoon.
Great. So yeah, Kamal, over to you for your comments, please.
So firstly, thank you, for having me join this session. I would have loved to be there personally, but unfortunately couldn't travel. But I'm happy to be with all of you virtually. From an airline perspective, I think the most important thing, and I probably would speak for all airlines, is that the airline becomes the end user for biojet fuel. And we would be absolutely delighted to, fly our planes on clean energy anytime compared to the current fossil fuel. Of course, the big issues, and many have been pointed out by Dr. Ray from a policy perspective, is of course the fact that we need biojet fuel definitely not more expensive than the current ATF that we buy it at. You all probably know that even the current ATF that we get in India is the most expensive in the world in terms of the taxation. A good average 26% tax is imposed on ATF in India, which is amongst the highest in some 160 countries. The other 30 odd countries are the ones who probably don't have aviation. So already paying so much for ATF is a big burden on our cost element. Having said that, if we can get biojet fuel definitely at the same price, if not lower, would certainly help. To achieve this end, what we at SpiceJet had done is that we were actually the first airline in South Asia to have done a demo flight on a Bombardier Q400 aircraft, a turboprop, which is now de Havilland, by flying a 25% blend of biojet fuel from Jetrofa. Many thanks to Dr. Ray and IIP, who were the major pillars and supporters for our demo flight and providing us the fuel for the same. And it was a very successful flight. It was so successful that I guess a whole lot of Indian government stakeholders, the ministers and the bureaucrats were very happy with this. So that created a lot of awareness. This is way back on August 18th, 2018, August 27, 2018. So I'm talking of over 4 years back. which created a lot of awareness, and we were happy that we could do that. Subsequently, we wanted to do a similar demo flight on a Boeing 737-800, but COVID came in and we did not get the requisite approvals from Boeing. We are still pursuing that. In the interim, and not to have lost out, the COVID inertia that hit the aviation industry, we became a key player along with World Economic Forum to do a kind of a research on what it would take SAF, a sustainable, financially sustainable SAF production in India. And a lot of other stakeholders participated. That was a 1-year virtual exercise, which was supported by McKinsey and all. Dr. Ray also was part of it, along with a few oil marketing companies as stakeholders. And we came out with a 72-page detailed report on really the topic being, financially sustainable SAF availability in India, not only for Indian aviation, but even for exports, which was then presented to the then Minister of Petroleum, Mr. Pradhan, who then launched it after a few tweaks formally as a very authentic report, as a way forward. It set the blueprint, and a committee was formed along with Dr. I forget the name, from Indian Oil, who set up a committee, and the committee presented its report to the Ministry of Petroleum. And subsequent to that, I don't see too much that has happened from a practical aspect on encouraging private players or oil marketing companies to set up the facility for SAF, as also to set up the infrastructure to reach the airports. So we are very committed. We are extremely committed, and we are ready to contribute in whichever way. But due to the commercial competitive aspect of aviation anywhere in the world, more so in India, we would definitely want policy initiatives from all stakeholders to provide us as end users SAF, which is within the costs that we can afford, and of course at various major airports from an infrastructure perspective. Thank you.
Those inputs. We don't have Mr. Dupare in the room today, but I just wanted to check if he has joined online from Indian Oil Sky Tanking.
Lina, he hasn't joined it.
Okay, I think the reason being that they are busy at the India Energy Week, and but I happened to visit their pavilion and speak to colleagues who did mention that they are very supportive, of course, of providing SAF to airlines. Currently they're not looking at production themselves, but in terms of supplying as an oil marketing company, they are very keen to do that. So we move on then to Mr. Frederick Combs from Airbus.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Frederick Combs. I am the newly nominated VP Engineering for all the region, India and South Asia, representing Airbus, the Airbus group. It means that it's not limited to the commercial aviation, but also covering defense and space and helicopter division. Sorry? Okay. But first, I would like to thank you to give us the opportunity to be present today, together with my colleague Stephen, in order to discuss about what I would say is a must. Decarbonization of the aviation is a must. I will not enter in the greenwashing topic we are suffering, not in some other area of the world, but clearly it's a no-brainer that we need to have an approach for all the actors who are involved in aviation to think about what could be done in order to decarbonize the aviation. And I must say that looking at the pure technical point of view, certainly one of the key elements which will support that is certainly the development technology in terms of technology, implementation, usage of the SAF, which is certainly one of the quickest wins which can be considered in order to go through this capability to decarbonize what is needed for the development of country, civilization, finance, and all the ecosystem in which we are living. Therefore, for us, it's at Airbus level, it's a no-brainer. We need to have a clear engagement in this journey. But when we are saying that, it's not granted. I'm sure that all the colleagues who are present here today are able to develop better than me the difficulties we have behind the development of SAF and its usage. I will just cover it from an aircraft perspective and as being one of the users for this global ecosystem, what could be certainly the main challenges from our side. The first element is certainly the usage on the aircraft. We are very in a collaborative mode with our colleagues from the engine manufacturer in order to see which percentage is it able to use 100% of SAF on aircraft. Are we going to use dropping or droppers? Are we going to use a blending approach? But I must say that we are going to make it a success. We are going to find the technology which will support that for aircraft. It's for sure. Why? Because we have already engaged in several tests or testing on all our aircraft, and today all our aircraft are capable to fly with a part of SAF. However, when I'm saying that, it has to be obviously sustainable for the aircraft, but it has to be also safe. And my background, being exposed during several years in product safety, led me to think that we need to have something which is not only remaining at the dream of developing a new technology for the pure sustainability, but at the end, on the daily operation, notably for our colleagues from the operator, we need to fly safely the aircraft. The product in itself will be fully safe. And for that, there is no magic solution when you are talking about aviation. We are talking about regulation. And the regulation of the SAF, which is certainly one of the biggest challenges we have ahead of us. Challenges because validating and regulating certainly a biofuel or fuel in itself is quite complex. It's generating lengthy discussion with all the different actors, but it's a no-brainer, and over time we need to make it a success. We need to have something which at the end is operative and for which we will be able to set up and to implement and to use on a daily manner on all our aircraft. This is the first element regarding the regulation. The second element, which will have a detrimental impact, notably regarding the cost and its proper usage, is the capability to have a SAF or biofuel or sustainable biofuel, which could be implemented on all the logistical chain without any drastic or complex implementation. Meaning that we all know that the fuel in themselves you need to add additive, sometimes which could be corrosive, and obviously this could have an impact on all the industrial footprint, logistical footprint we have within the airport. Clearly, if we need and if we have to develop a SAF which will not be possible to implement and to use with the existing logistical footprint we have within the airport, I would say that on a pure financial point of view, forget it. It will be unrealistic, looking notably at new countries like India who have willingness to develop certainly one of the highest footprint of aviation in the future. If in 10, 15 years, we have to change all the logistical industry footprints for the transportation of the SAF from the manufacturing to the aircraft, which will be at the end the end user. Therefore, it's really important that all together we find a way as a key actors in order to have something which will be regulated in this sense, in order to make it operational. And the last thing I wanted to cover before certainly to leave the floor to my colleagues from Stephen, which is definitely more knowledgeable on the SAF than me, is talking a little bit about the local ecosystem in India. I'm discovering India, and beyond the vibrant India and the energetic view or development capabilities we have in India, what is sure is that India could play a key role regarding the SAF development for the future. First, in terms of scale, in terms of population, in terms of development of aviation, in terms of feedstock, which can be developed there. And that's the reason why Airbus has a strong willingness to develop partnership with local actors. We have already signed an MOU with ILP in this sense, in order to actively develop this SAF capability in India. But also on a pure market point of view, you have to be aware that 80% of what we call the short-range aircraft, family of aircraft like in which you have F320 or 737, 80% of the aircraft in this range who are flying in India are from Airbus, with notably the F320neo. And it's not going to reduce. We know that the business development capability and the future announcement which will be pushed in the next days certainly will increase this range. Therefore, for Airbus is clearly a must to have a strong engagement here in India in order to develop this capability. And I will finish with my own perimeter. We want to support it on a pure technical point of view. I'm managing the engineering center here in Bangalore. We have a strong local footprint, competencies base, core engineering knowledge. And clearly the idea is to be as close as possible to all the actors who are going to support this development, to make it a success, not only for India, but for global. And you know better than me, and notably my Indian colleagues, that making India for local, but local also for global is certainly a must. And clearly this is the approach we are willing to consider at Airbus level by supporting the development, the
Hello, Senthil, can you hear us? We just lost the feed.
Yes.
Can't hear.
Yes, just 1 second, just checking. Senthil. So Senthil's our colleague on the ground who's managing the audio visual.
Yeah, it's there. And they are on mute.
I'm talking to Spice gentleman,
No, he's not joining us.
Yeah, Lina and Senthil, we can hear you now. We can proceed. I think.
Stephen, are you here? Stephen Moy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, and again, thanks for the invitation and giving the opportunity for Airbus to share our views on this SAF topic in India. And just to start, I can only reinforce what Frederick said about our clear commitment to engage Airbus and the entire aviation sector into decarbonization, and for sure the sector, the industry is expecting a lot coming from SAF in terms of achieving, the net zero target by 2050. And it has been clearly stated. So that's where we stand and where we want to achieve by 2050. But for this, we need a quick ramp up of SAF production, SAF usage, and at a global level. So that's why also Airbus is really supporting and pushing the fact that we need this SAF to be present in the different regions of the world. And as was mentioning Frederick, really the ecosystem in India, all the advantage around the potential of feedstock, around the technology, knowledge, capabilities, the engagement coming from airlines, from the airport is really there. So we are clearly feeling a momentum, and that's why we're really keen to engage more on more uh, um, interaction and acting really as a catalyst in this SAF story in India. Stepping back a bit regarding what we are doing. So as Airbus and as mentioned by Frederic, we have a for sure our core business around the technology, the aircraft and so on. So that's why we are deeply involved in the technology approval system of the SAF, which is the ASTM, so US organism that is clearing all the new technology pathway to produce SAF and to ensure that this product is a drop-in solution, can be used with no impact on operation safety and so on for the aviation. So this is one major activity where Airbus is taking its own role alongside the other engine manufacturer or OEMs and so on. That's key for ensuring that we can use SAF. But definitely we can and we need to go beyond in order to really stimulate and kick off this SAF story. And that's why today also linking, for example, Europe and India, it's also the opportunity potentially to share good practices in the way the ecosystem and the favorable ecosystem could be put in place to make the SAF market appear. Why we are saying that is because basically the very early the aviation sector stated that we cannot make it alone. We need policymakers, to support this SAF market emergence. We need to be supported. So it means that in terms of demand, in terms of production, there should be a connection between, I would say, this kind of magic triangle, the policymakers, the airlines, the producers, and having the actors, the other actors of the industry acting as catalysts. Yeah.
Just a speaker. Just connect the speaker. That's all.
To the BIAL laptop itself, that should be better.
Recording in progress. Was that?
Is it okay? Okay. Okay, no worries. So it's really important to be able to mobilize also all this ecosystem and making the right policy frame, the right regulation, because it will give confidence and visibility on the production side, because production side need this to be sure that the market will be there still for future decades. So this stability is required to really be capable to set up such kind of market. One also interesting point that could be taken, for example, from Europe is also the structuration of the different stakeholder through public-private alliances. We can see that at European level with the round table on low carbon fuels, where all the different actors are working through different roundtables on, the feedstock story, the technology, but also there is a dedicated roundtable on funding investment, because it's going to be key also in this industry, and being capable to attract private or public investment into this story, to make the new plans happen will be key in this story. And that's also where Airbus as again a catalyst want to play a complete role in this SAF story. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Certainly appreciate the role of Airbus playing the role of this in this process. And we have one more online speaker, Mr. Ghanshyam Deshpande, President, Technology and Engineering of Praj Industries.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Ghanshyam, we can. Go ahead.
Thanks for this opportunity. It's really wonderful exercise. Uh, First thing I would like to appreciate, and let me say I am from the Praj Industries, maybe odd man out in this because in the ecosystem we are probably at the front end. And I see most of the speakers are coming from the consumer point of view, airlines and so on and so forth. It's very important to be game plan of the whole value chain. And Praj has been very instrumental for last 4 decades in decarbonization of the transportation sector, right from the road to aviation, and we are also looking at the marine side. One thing which I commonly see across the all stakeholders that everyone wants to be okay or on for the SAP, right? Going forward. So that's a very common voice. It's really nice to hear and be part of this voice. But yes, I think there are many challenges which are involved. India, there is a lot of demand which has been spent. And I also agree to Dr. Anjan Ray and many speakers here who say there are actually feedstock is available in India. In India being an agrarian country, agrarian economy, we have surplus of agri biomass, and which has been talked and discussed in many forums. Just to give the number-wise perspective, if you use this agri waste, we will be able to produce 5 million metric tons of SAF, which is more than India, almost 5 times what India would require by 2025 or 2030. That means feedstock is available, right? What we need to only look at the technology pathway, where most of the players have done a lot of work. Now, Praj is definitely one of them, and would like to definitely lead the overall game plan. And all of you may be knowing we have already tied up with American technology company GEO, who has been very instrumental and active in America for basically commercialization of SAF. And they have taken a lot of trials. The pathway has been ASTM approved, 17566. All those kind of, I think, formalities and safety regulations have been properly met with and studied by GEO. In India, we are also looking at basically integration of the knowledge which we have on the bioprocess side for production of ethanol or higher alcohols, maybe isobutanol with the help of GEO. We would like to integrate with the downstream process with our another technology partner, Access, which is coming from the European region. So that way we have very good collaboration with EU India. And with all those 2 collaborators with us, with a kind of a knowledge of commercial sustainable aviation fuel, Praj would like to be really a leader or instrumental in basically providing SAF in a sustainable way. I think most of the colleagues here are talking about how this can be made financially sustainable, right? I think that's a big challenge, and definitely it is important to put our knowledge and experience including the feedstock logistics to make it what we call as a low CI, carbon intensity number, as well as low cost sustainable aviation fuel. And there are a lot of innovations possible going forward. Today, there are 9 pathways. All of you may be knowing there are 9 pathways already existing. And Praj would like to take up this ATJ pathway. I know Dr. Anjan Ray, IIT, is working on the HEPA pathway, which is also leading the total the 9 pathway. But Praj has taken another route, which is ATJ pathway, where we will be actually converting ethanol and isobutanol into hydrocarbons or SAF. So definitely we are in a very active mode today. We have a very good world-class R&D center wherein we actually produce SAF on a base scale, which has been tested, approved by airlines and OMCs. So we are very confident that yes, it can be scaled up. So next thing what we are trying to look up, because it is important to actually along with the ecosystem to really keep supplying aviation fuel in a very sustainable way to airlines, so that I think there will not be SAF in the market, right? I think today, when we look at the low CI, low cost CI, SAF, there is a shortage or there is scarcity of this available. Now, having done this second generation ethanol technology already implemented at Panipat, all of you may be knowing it, along with Indian Oil Corporation, that could be a good source of a low carbon intensity ethanol for converting into SAF. So the infrastructure is available, the technology is available, the stock is available. And India, it means India has a very great potential and could be really good international hub for supply of sustainable aviation fuel going forward. But it looks easy, but it's not that easy. Definitely, most of us talk about this. Unlike Europe, EU, or USA, we don't have clear policies laid down today. Europe has what we call the refuel EU policy, which talks about 2% blending to as good as 60%, 63% blending going by 2050. India doesn't have today policies clearly spelled out. That's exactly what we are trying to really focus on. So we need to have clear policies, clear mandates, some kind of initial support from the government to make it a sustainable solution or low cost kind of SAF in the market. So these are some of the thoughts we are doing about a lot of R&D work. We want to bring down the cost of sustainable aviation fuel because we know it is a real cost burden on the airlines. Today, again, my colleagues talk about, even Mr. Ingorani talk about how whether it can be made comparable or competent with the jet fuel, which is existing at maybe, I know, Indian rupees, 100 rupees a liter or something. Yes, I think there are possibilities, but yes, it is going to take time. A lot of innovation is required, and we are actually working in that direction. I think these are some of the thoughts. So definitely, I would like to have. If somebody has some questions, I would like to read the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ghanshyam. I think we've, we had a round of discussions, and maybe we should follow up and check around the table if we have any questions and comments to this first round. Yeah, Mr. Ramakrishnan. Yeah.
Well, I just quickly would like to react on a couple of things. There's been some discussion with regard to the costing of the sustainable aviation fuel. We all know that it is expensive. As I see it, it's an evolving kind of a process. For a period of time, the prices probably would become competitive with the ATF. The point that Dr. Anjan Ray was trying to make, what if we didn't do it? There are a lot of other implications that we have to keep in mind. We didn't discuss anything about the CARSIA, guidelines. India is still not a signatory to CARSIA, but I think DGCA is already working on, signing the CARSIA agreement, which only means that if you are not ready with sustainable aviation fuel by 2035, a lot of the international traffic may not touch India. They may not want to come here. So this is a requisite from all the airlines, and whoever is the signatory of CARSIA has to fulfill this kind of requirement. So, which means that until such time the cost becomes competitive, the airlines have no choice. They have to go with the kind of national and international regulations on this. So it is very important that while cost factor is an important factor, we need to ensure that we start working towards it, and the necessary infrastructure needs to be created as far as sustainable aviation fuel is concerned. And now, Mr. Muthukrishnan did talk about the assessment of technological pathways. In fact, in this room itself, there are, as I see it, there are people representing 4 different technologies. We have the HEFA technology, which Dr. Ray has been working on. Just now, Ghanshyam did mention about the alcohol to the jet fuel route. And now we also have accents here, we have Rodrigo. They have another technology where, through the gasification, you can also look at combining the syngas in the Fischer-Tropsch process, and they are also working on pyrolysis oil to ATF. So there are multiple technologies. And yesterday we were discussing about LanzaTech. LanzaTech also have alcohol to jet fuel route, but then again they are talking about different route for producing the ethanol. So we are talking about multiple different pathways, and there are various different agencies which are already focusing on the various technological pathways. I don't think every stakeholder has to really look at every single aspect of the sustainable aviation fuel. Our roles had to be very clear, and we had to focus on our roles rather than looking at the roles that had to be played by other stakeholders. So, this is something that is, I believe, is important, and we have to keep in mind the kind of challenges that we have. If we are not ready with sustainable aviation fuel by 2035 and going up to 2050 and things like that. So it is important and very critical. There are players, like the HIFA technology. There is one plant, MRPL is going to be building very soon in Karnataka. More plants are going to be coming up quite soon. Raj has the technology where they're already signed up an MOU with Aviation to produce jet fuel from the alcohol route. So things are happening when it comes to that. And then we need not have to be really worried about the quality of the sustainable aviation fuel, because ultimately everybody has to produce fuel for a certain specification. And that specification has been defined at the international level, at the national level, etc. So why are we worried? Or, so for example, somebody like, the Bengaluru International Airport Limited should not really be worried about the quality of the fuel. The quality, there are others who are responsible for producing the quality fuel to you. So the point that I'm trying to make is that, each one of us has a certain role, and let us play our role rather than trying to comment on the role that is got to be played by somebody else. That's what I think.
And I just add a small comment. Yeah. I think the cost point is actually very important. So assuming that there is no appetite for a cost increase, we know mathematically that the feedstock costs a certain amount and the final product costs a certain amount. And the spread between that represents the value available to each of the stakeholders. What's happening today is feedstock is actually going out from India to countries which have carbon taxes or other incentives, and SAF is getting produced there with feedstock from. Therefore, clearly, there is a distortion taking place in the global market because the incentives are not the same everywhere. One thing perhaps that we can look at as part of the electric exercise here is what needs to be done to ensure level playing field for feedstock buyers here and feedstock buyers abroad. So that the feedstock is available relatively over here with appropriate taxation or other facilities.
Okay, I have a point to make you. Now, for SAF, you are comparing the price to aviation jet fuel currently. But what mechanism do airlines have about the price of the AJF? How do they, when that goes up, what do they do? Natural. I mean, this is what I'm saying. If that goes up, it's okay. But the moment SAF is higher, then we shout on the rooftop. I mean, this is something we should see. Prices keep going up all the time.
We understand it's not stable. You cannot benchmark with the current.
Yeah, you can't benchmark it.
May change over the years. So SAF may be a kind of different benchmark at some time. So do not compare.
Exactly what I'm saying. ATM prices keep going up. And if somebody wants to sabotage the SAF program, they'll bring it down drastically also. Let me tell you. And we know whom we are talking to. Yeah.
I have one important point. See, sustainable aviation fuel, on the perspective of International Civil Aviation Organization, should meet criteria. There are 13 criteria. So producing today from XYZ factors, or using some technology, or making a travel around, but it will not meet the criteria of sustainable aviation fuel. You may get a fuel, but you cannot compensate the carbon intensity factors or carbon reduction factors as the program is established. So maybe all the forum members, we should know about what is the criteria. And it should also meet those criteria, then only the objective of SAF gets fulfilled. So what we are trying to do is, SAF is alternative to ATF. That's one point taken care. But it should not create more CO2 by the way we produce, transport, or do whatever the manner it is. If it starts producing more CO2, the objective what we think SAF will reduce emission overall atmosphere, you will not achieve it.
That is why we are trying to prevent the export. That's what Anjal was talking about.
So I'm just trying to bring a component to it. SAF is SAF. It's a one component of fuel, like water we can say. But it should meet the criteria, then only it will meet into an objective of carbon reduction. Or qualifying the criteria of whether it is the COSIA, or whether it is the carbon credits, or whether if you wanted to achieve with the net zero, all the calculations, you have to show that it meets the sustainability.
There are good examples. You see how the auto industry has evolved. You come from plug-in hybrid to e-mobility, and we already talked about fuel cells. The technology life cycle has reduced, and that's where Dr. Anjal also mentioned that evidence-based sustainability, is very important. That like this the process side of it, you have to go more deeper.
That is already done. It's documented.
But it's the parameters of it, they keep evolving. If you get a new technology, it will change. Like, so that it's not like you have to create the framework, all the partners, the logistics side of it, the demand and supply, financing, all these frameworks can coexist. And then the technology in the process side, something which is very deeper, which the technology partners have to go deeper into those engagements to understand. And the larger group can understand more on the framework side of it to achieve it. True, because it is like you can't achieve everything overnight. It's evolving. And companies getting into ESG and a lot of other offering and a lot of certifications coming in. We are talking about a different league, like you said, 2025, we'll have to get a movement and engagement.
There are two, again, I just wanted to differentiate between ESG versus SAF. ESG is I'm driving ESG, it's a financial instrument which we focus on being responsible. But SAF is a little beyond that. So climate action, it's more towards climate action, more towards commitment for alternative fuel, and making all we are in the part of climate oriented operations. So I know about ESG. I don't want to link this ESG.
You are saying it's a driver towards that. Companies have to have look at certification, they have to look at transparency. Yes, it's a good, something which is evolving also. It cannot be achieved overnight, but yes, it's also complementary to what we're discussing.
And one more factor, don't try to reinvent the game. Technologies that, maybe it can be improved. There are a research team, they will be doing it. And these technologies are approved and published. So it's a matter of pattern. Who owns the technology, you may have price value to it. You can exchange the technology. Since it is all already evolved and it is placed and approved by International Civil Aviation Organization. And the fuel is also certified for the specification in India, what's said internationally. So most of the things are done. It's a matter of scale up, availability of raw material in India, try to demonstrate with some kind of demonstration project, and then bring it to the scale. But whether are we ready now or will it take time? That's a question. So maybe for all the audience, we have reached somewhere around 70%. Technology is available, we know feedstock, we know how to fix it, we know how to operate it. Only thing where, how, and when, who will fund for it? Can we do it in a research mode? Already did by Indian Institute of Petroleum, or can we go into a little bit larger scale? That is what I think we can explore. If EU is interested to go for a demonstrator to a little larger scale, we can straight away get into a product. All other factors are already in. We need not to do any research.
Like the actors are on the table. The question is how can the existing actors around the table make a plan, to proceed. I think, I was thinking in my mind, Dr. Anjal too, and listening to you, Frederick, as well. You're not doing a lot of studies. You're already, you've put your hands into the mud. And the question is, have you all thought of corroborating a list of asks? Like we talked about a clear list of stakeholders, like we need to each have our roles. Now, if you try and, if you have to ask as an airport, what are your asks? And as an airline, what are your asks? And as an, an Airbus manufacturer, what are your asks? Have we put that together somewhere? Is it there?
It's not to put a little bit like a double effect. That we can perceive that there is this willingness to put on the table that definitely concur to what you have said. Technology has been tested, checked, the different actors. We know how to which type of stuff which can be usable on the aircraft. Now, really, the challenge is the industrialization. just to have us what is really the need we have to do, we have to do is through the industrialization. Why? Because we can think about the best aircraft, the best engine, the best operator to use it in a daily manner with the proper maintenance. If you don't have the proper setup for the industrialization, forget it. Therefore, it's another reason why Airbus is willingness to engage and to push and to be capable to go even beyond what is our normal operational model, which is to really to stay in our comfort zone, I would say, on the aircraft itself. We want to engage ourselves and to stimulate and to know better how we can industrialize this material. Why? Because without that, we never reach the goal of decarbonization. Therefore, it's really important. My feeling is that leave potentially the actor who are in charge of the technology development scheme, and certainly focus more on the industrialization. How we do ensure that we are able to manufacture a SAF which will be properly regulated with the needed actor. And I'm really looking for a collaboration with IAP, notably in India, in order to try this capability to regulate the SAF, because without that, another time it will be only a dream. We need to have something which is regulated as per the jet fuel regulation, which is quite long. We need to have it. Putting it aside, we need to have an industrial footprint which is consistent and applicable to the aviation market, from the manufacturing industry to the delivery to the aircraft, with all the constraints you have notably at the airport level, because without that, another time, it will be only a dream. We have to be also a little bit pragmatic without reinventing all the technology elements. Because if you put 10 specialists on SAF, it's like putting 10 engineers and 10 pilots, 20 different companies. However, all that has been done. Let's potentially focus more on what we need to do for the industrial footprint, not only looking at the specificity and the benefit of the Indian ecosystem, because I'm sure that there are plenty of things which can be really a driver for the development of the SAF, but worldwide. Clearly, India can play a key role to do the specificity of the
I just ask, I think Dr. Ray mentioned a point earlier on about how much we produce, how much we throw away, so how the industrial footprint not being meant to be. And if you remember last week we spoke about this as well, which is it's almost as if you have to get the policy measures in place. Such a high disincentivization to use the traditional jet fuel here in India by a certain date, that everybody will be forced to industrialize and move to scale production, right? And the ability to drive towards that. So it's almost as saying that just as we move to certain engine standards, the automobile industry, say BS6, etc., over time, almost it's imperative on all of us to be able to say that, let's say by 2030 or some date, right, that so much of the fuel or so much of the use it's mandated that it has to be a certain threshold. Because if you don't do that, all of the stuff that all of you are talking about, which is industrialization, production at scale, the value proposition, the financial sort of incentive or disincentive, will not work. So I think it's almost as if, between the industry and the government, we've got to come together and be able to say that if you do these three things, you're driving towards production at scale, you're driving towards sort of industrialization, you're driving towards adoption, under a set of financial sort of benefits. To do so, or let's say that the penalty of not doing so is so high that you have to do it, right? And I think you'll almost have to drive towards that.
Instead of penalizing it, why not pay?
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. We're actually running a little behind. We also have some comments from Mr. Stephen participating online. Maybe you can share your comments, and then we'll probably have to move to the next session. Sorry.
Yes, very quickly, and I think very good points exchanged, a very good discussion around key topics for SAF. And I think that the question, both on the technical frame for the SAF and also the sustainability approach, basically, and I think Frederick mentioned it, we need to ensure also to avoid fragmentation compared to the international approach, because our aircraft will fly everywhere. You will also receive foreign airlines flying out of your airport. So we need to ensure that all the requirements for the SAF that will be produced in India will cope with technical requirement and will cope with sustainability requirements. So as it could be developed, for example, at ICAO level, you can also add and complement with on India approach on this, but we need to avoid to have too fragmented approaches on that. And also to rebound on one important thing I've noted in the discussion, I think it is key to for India to gather the key stakeholders in a ideal forum and to be capable to agree on ambitions and what could be the elements to put in place to reach this ambition. Just as an illustrative case, we as on our side, we are supporting the ambition and through the WEF also of a 10% SAF on the global aviation consumption by 2030. And that's when once you have a target, you then can work on what are the milestones to go through this target? What are what is the feedstock required? What are the capacity building that is need to be put in place? And what are the regulation and the policy that the actors, the end user, the producer, the airlines could expect to make it viable? So all this need to be built, I think, at Indian level. And again, just to reinforce Frederick's messages, BUS is really keen to support beyond our core business on aircraft, really keen to support the implementation of this market in India. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Stephen. We'll just now pause in the interest of time. I'm just going to hand over to Patrick to start the session. And then we finish this and then take a break. Then we take a break after that.
Thank you very much. Yesterday, I was in a meeting with Fredo, when we were discussing many similar things. And I was asked to share some ideas on what could be learned from Europe. I had 2 points that I wanted to make. But one of the points in particular was very much in line with some of the comments that were made just now. In the programming of the European Commission, for example, to support the transition in aviation and maritime transport, a lot of the emphasis is on new technologies for refining, new technologies for integrated biorefineries, etc. But the point is that there's a whole range of other issues around this which need to be addressed as well. So the main recommendation yesterday was that we're going to have to look at those because we're not doing it. And unless we do, we will not reach the targets that we set for ourselves. So that's really what this session is about. So to explain to you what we're going to try to achieve, we have remotely, we have a colleague, Atul Suri from the EBTC, the European Business and Technology Center, based in New Delhi. Atul has been running an aviation cluster for a while. So already a number of years ago, the discussion on these issues, barriers and enablers, has started with the aviation sector. And he'll talk to you a little bit about where they left off and the progress that was made. And ultimately, we're trying to build upon this, but now we need to move to actions. And in terms of actions, and based on the conversations that I've been having with the speakers, based on the meetings I had last November, I have a set of 3 recommendations that we're going to address to the Commission. I hope that's not why it's left me. But they're concrete, actionable recommendations which address these non-technology issues around the biofuel supply chain. Now, obviously, this document has been circulated. It's just a draft. We need to refine it and nuance it, and we'll do that. But in this session, we're going to hear from people on the front line or at the coalface, so to speak, in the production of biofuels at feedstock level, at the refinery level, and they're going to explain to us what they see as the major issues that need to be addressed.
and give their ideas on how this can be done. But at the very end, Varun here, also from the ABTC, who's going to make some rapid comments. We'll have a chance for discussion and we leave it up to PLE to let us know what are the next steps. So I'd like to call upon Atul Suri right now from EBTC. He's going to join us remotely. He's going
Yes.
to tell us what we're doing with the aviation project.
Can you hear and see me? At least hear me?
Yes, Atul, we can. Yeah.
Okay. Just a little bit of background to my person. I'm Atul Suri. I'm the cluster lead for transport and logistics at EBTC, the European Business and Technology Center. And I've been there since 2017. My background is clearly aviation and maritime consulting, actually. Started my career in ground handling. And now since 2020, leading the Europe India Aviation Cluster, which was co-financed by the EU as part of the BSPD project. BSPD stands for Business Support to the EU-India Policy Dialogues, which ended last year ago, a year ago, and it has been incorporated as an ongoing initiative in our EBTC transport cluster. So just a little bit background on the cluster. The cluster is here to catalyze business involvements through, value-based and value chain-based access strategies in order to bring European and Indian businesses together in the sense of heading towards a green and sustainable aviation. On a demand-driven approach. Demand-driven means that we scan the market, get the demand that it's in India, that's also in Europe, and we bring the stakeholders together. As part of the EU project, we thought, okay, how do we structure that this cluster? And we are divided into working groups, and one of the working group is on sustainability. And we have focused ourselves on developing strategies or discussing at least strategies on sustainable aviation fuel, green airports, etc. And one of the initiatives or one of the initial reasons why we focused on sustainable aviation fuel is the reference to the EU refuel policy that has been developed in order to intensify the production of SAF in Europe and also create awareness on how to design policies, and also from the perspective of the European Commission that considers India as a natural partner of development of SAF. So in the previous discussions, I already heard a lot of topics that really resonate of what we have already discussed in the cluster and also in the working groups, also with the reference of logistics. We all know that India is an El Dorado for feedstock availability. That's not a question. But we also saw the reference of how do we create logistics and supply chain around all the feedstock availability. Since this sector is experiencing a very, very big growth, the supply chain and the delivery of the infrastructure to have a functioning supply chain is needed and has to be installed even before the growth. So that's why we have started the discussions in 2020 already. But what we have also looked at is, of course, we can talk about so many nice things that we can develop and create in aviation and also in producing SAF and supply chains, but it's all about the finances. And it's really, really important for policymakers and financial institutions, as well as the industry, to come together and make investments for the sector more attractive. So we are looking to see how we can get financial institutions also in the loop to have a common roadmap and a strategy for developing more cost-effective technologies to produce SAF and to commercialize it for the markets as well. In the previous discussions already the demand vs the price has already been discussed, so I don't want to go too deep in there because, of course, we know that the production of SAF is expensive, and we see also that government and tax incentives and tax reductions are needed to intensify that that availability as well. When it comes to finance in general, we had discussed that, yeah, we need new financial products needed to intensify the financing environment and frameworks for SAF, production of SAF, and also for the development of the infrastructure. And partners like the EIB, European Investment Bank, could be somebody who could be there as partner for projects for market readiness, such as storage facilities and sustainable transport for sustainable aviation fuels. Also, with the view of sustainable transport modules, e-mobility, sustainable maritime transport, etc., etc. What else we discovered is, and was discussed, is the mitigation of insolvency risk. So defining the financial planning and financing terms, so debt equity ratio, market interest rates, right from the beginning, so that we have a financial liabilities for the refineries as well. Looking at green bonds, I think, or we think, or the financial institutions think, that it presents a great opportunity for businesses in the aviation sector, also with regards to SAF, to define mechanisms of accessing green bonds globally. Right now, globally, already 1 trillion, I think, $1 trillion of green bonds have been executed, and at the same time, there's a need to strengthen compliance and compliance procedures for ESG for all listed companies, because the entire market in India needs to be secured, and governance as well. So reporting mechanisms and governance mechanisms has to be installed in there as well. So yeah, this is the findings and the discussions that we have been doing in short. I'm very happy to hear more about it from our industry partners that are here on board as well. And over back to you, to Patrick as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Atul. I think next we're going to hear from Stephen Bartholomeus from Neste. After that, we'll hear from Accents, Siddhartha Saha from Accents. And actually, Monish, I'll move you towards the end,
Sure.
Along with Professor Gowda and his team, where we look at the more feedstock oriented. But Stephen, are you there?
Sorry.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So Stephen Bartholomeus from Neste.
Can you hear me and see me?
We can hear you.
Okay, well, hopefully my video says it's on. So if you can't see me, I'll continue to speak, and hopefully it'll come on. If it doesn't, it's no loss. My days of Hollywood acting are gone, so I'm not as good looking as I used to be. But anyway, just very quickly, starting on a few comments. I think what I'll do is just very quickly introduce Neste, talk about why we need SAF. But then I just want to leave you with two thoughts arising from some of the comments made by the earlier panel and the earlier group. Neste is the world's largest producer of renewable fuels. We are the world market leader in renewable diesel for road transport, and currently we also produce about 100,000 tons of SAF, which is just a drop in the ocean, but nevertheless, something that gets the ball started. Because sustainable aviation fuel is a key enabler if we are to achieve net zero aviation by 2050. Now, just some very quick facts. We know aviation accounts for about 2 to 3% of all global carbon emissions, and this is expected to grow to about 20% by 2050 if no action is taken. And I think we need to be mindful that in addition, there are non-CO2 effects like contrails and other factors that also have higher climate impacts. Achieving the 2050 net zero target is going to need a significant amount of sustainable aviation fuel. And this aviation fuel is going to have to come from multiple technologies. What's great about sustainable aviation fuel, as most of you know, is that it's available right now. It's a drop-in solution, and it's got greenhouse gas emission reduction capabilities as well as non-CO2 effects. So all in all, it works very well in terms of reducing emissions. Now, just talking about Neste, we, as I mentioned, currently produce about 100,000 tons of sustainable aviation fuel. And later on this year, in 2023, when our Singapore expansion project comes on stream at the end of Q1, we will have the capability of producing about 1 million tons of sustainable aviation fuel here in Singapore, and then about another 500,000 tons in our refinery in Rotterdam. So about 1.5 million tons in total. And then growing that in 2026 with further investments in our Rotterdam facility to about 2.2 million tons of sustainable aviation fuel. Nevertheless, just a drop in the ocean, considering that globally, pre-COVID, we were using about 300 million tons of jet fuel. Now, fueling this industry, if you pardon my pun, is going to require the necessary feedstocks. And whether it is technology like alcohol to jet or whether it's HEPA technology, you will need to have the right amount of feedstock in place. Talking just about HEPA technology, which is the technology that Neste uses, which is oils and fats, we expect the waste and residue oils and fats availability to grow to about 40 million tons per annum by 2030. And this is by unlocking the potential of various markets. But then going forward, we need to invest in future technologies as well. So currently, as I said, looking at used cooking oil, animal fat as the current technology. And then in the future, we need to focus on things like lignocellulosics and municipal solid waste. And then, 10 years beyond that, we should be looking at technologies like algae and power to liquids as well. But I think to really drive this industry forward, and if you look at markets where we are seeing an interest and a demand and also investment in sustainable aviation fuel, and Mr. Deshpande from Praj Industries already alluded to this, and I fully support his views here, that what we really need are clear policies and clear mandates to drive this industry forward. And whether these policies come in the form of mandates, or whether they come in the form of incentives, or whether they are a combination of the two, to drive demand certainty, you need the right regulations in place. And we are seeing this developing in several markets already. In Europe, we have, as Atul pointed out, the refuel initiative, which will see a 2% mandate by 2025. But we already have other markets like Norway and the UK having sort of SAF mandates, and also France, and then some of them being even more ambitious in 2030 than the 2% target set for 2025. In the United States, you have the Inflation Reduction Act, which now has sort of incentives for SAF as well. And then in countries like here in the Asia Pacific region, we have Japan that has announced a 10% sustainable aviation fuel target by 2030. Since that announcement was made in March 2022, we have seen 3 investment announcements by local players around sustainable aviation fuel. So what's going to drive this industry forward
is a combination of mandates or incentives that are required. But then I just want to touch on India and the opportunity that exists here for India. I think that in terms of sustainable aviation fuel, we heard at the IATA conference that was held in New Delhi in October, the Secretary for the Civil Aviation Ministry announced that India was looking or planning on introducing a SAF mandate. Now that's really great to hear. Ms. Deshpande pointed out about the availability of agricultural waste and residue, which is one form of technology or one feedstock that can be used for the production of sustainable aviation fuel. But one feedstock that remains untapped in India is used cooking oil. India consumes about 23 million tons of edible oils on an annual basis. According to the Ministry of Petroleum, Oil and Natural Gas, about 3 million tons of UCO is generated. But last week, we worked with the Observer Research Foundation on a study. And what this study found out, that more than 60% of the used cooking oil that is generated keeps going back into the food system. And this causes tremendous food safety issues. For as we know, once oil is heated up, it develops polar compounds. And these polar compounds, once they hit about 25%, are carcinogenic and can cause all sorts of other non-communicable diseases. Some of the parties that were interviewed by the Observer Research Foundation said that, or claimed, because this is, as you can imagine, this is self-reported. They claimed that they were throwing the used cooking oil down the drain. If they are throwing the used cooking oil down the drain, as they claim, then in my opinion, first, they are creating an environmental hazard. But secondly, they're also throwing what is essentially money down the drain. And Prime Minister Modi has his waste to wealth program. This is an aspect that could fit very well under the waste to wealth program. The challenge for used cooking oil in India is enforcement. How do you get it out of the food system? Again, this is data that is claimed. The Biodiesel Association of India told me that in 2017, they were able to collect about 50,000 tons of used cooking oil. So roughly out of the 3 million tons, about 50,000 tons. They claim that they are able to collect less than 50% of that now with the price of edible oil going up. So there is an opportunity in India to develop a domestic sustainable aviation fuel market. To do that, you need to have a couple of things. You need to have regulations related to feedstock, and you need to have the right policies to encourage the industry to go forward. Thank you.
Very interesting and very concrete. You have really clear ideas of what needs to be done, and we try to pick up on those now in the recommendations. But I think for the next speaker, maybe we could turn to Munzer and Walter. You are very interested in the issue of used cooking oil, so it's a natural follow-on from Stephen.
Yeah. So Stephen mentioned a lot of the political issues that they have in India and then the topics, and we have the slides. You don't have the slides in here.
You want slides?
Yeah, if you have the slides, so because just to give a brief explanation about what we are doing, we are a small family-owned company located on 3 continents, and we have a plant here in Mumbai. We have about more than 450 million annual turnover with 400 could come. With it's the same what I'm talking. So it was 420 employees. And
Sorry, Walter, maybe we just wait to get your slides up.
Okay.
Sir, I think you can do double click.
They were there earlier. Yeah, no, it's
probably it's not there on this laptop. It must have been.
No, no.
It just showed up, right? So how?
Asha, can you?
Yeah, we're sharing the screen with the slides on it.
No, it's
So-
not visible.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. So who's sharing the slides right now?
We cannot find it.
Remotely from our.
No, we are asking
We
you.
are
if
at,
Yeah, but
our
someone
screen
from
is
the
there.
office.
You just need to pin shared content.
But no one is sharing them right now. So is it Vartika, Harsha, or who's?
Vartika is
Yeah,
sharing.
yeah, yeah, and it's visible to me. Harsha, is it visible to you too?
Yeah, we can see it online, but I think.
Yes.
There's a
Yeah, they were. Vartik, because we can.
You see the green box in the middle on the bottom?
Yeah.
You click on that.
No, but it's someone else that is sharing them.
Yeah.
And they're on top, but. But Vartika, can't you share them on your screen?
Yeah, we're doing that. We're doing that currently. We can share. We're sharing them on the screen.
Because we can.
Senthil, you just have to pin the screen. Share. Look at shared content.
They're sitting in the office, right?
Yeah, they're sitting in an office, but not here.
Oh, not in this.
Here, not here.
Well, I can see the presentation here on my screen offside.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not in the middle. It's like.
Then that's an issue with the project.
Projector, yeah.
So maybe
Yeah, one second. Just
Yeah,
move that.
okay,
That's it. Yeah.
No, thanks a lot. So now you can read what I was just explaining to you. We are a pioneer in the implementation of holistic waste collection and treatment systems. We started in Austria 30 years ago and developed in the country. We are one of the largest producers of waste biodiesel in waste-based biodiesel in Europe. And we have a fully integrated feedstock supplier for SAF in Austria with the biggest Austrian petrol company, together with Lufthansa and Austrian Airlines based in Vienna. So next slide. So this is now how we see the situation as it is. So in the first line, this is for us is the trans-esterification. So you see we have 1,000 used cooking oil or Utomate, and the equivalent of CO2 is 10 gram. So we have a 90% CO2 reduction. In the second line is a kind of hydro generation for we have the same. The reduction is a little bit less, but with 84% of CO2 reduction, even high enough. And the last line is the hydrogen generation and the isomerization. And you see at the end of the day with 75%, it's not the best value of the CO2 reduction. And so we sum up that this is a very sensitive topic, and this used cooking oil for us should go to roads, and because here it generates more, or also in the marine sector generates more CO2 reductions. And for us, as we see it, it's a kind of it's a kind of inefficiency in the aviation line. So I think what we are going to see, and I explained it to several of the participants yesterday, is not to come into a competition for the feedstock, maritime against aviation. So we have to see that not these four are fighting against this one, this aviation, because we have to educate the complementarity rather than replacement. So we have to find solutions as we collect from restaurants, from hotels, from households. We produce this biodiesel out of it, and this is, how we can see here, the most GHG reduction possible. So we already talked about it, and I think the airlines know it best, that it's a very cost-effective topic, and it's more expensive to produce it out of this, and has a fewer GHG reduction. And we see the future that in the roads, the private cars will be driven by electricity, no matter which year we count on here. So this will be what's the industry. There will be the hydrogen, the most driver, and I worked at Siemens Energy before, so I know that there are very strong investments, big investments that this will come to, and heavy goods shipping should go to waste, and e-fuels to aviation. So
next slide.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So this is what we always proclaim to the public, to the politicians. On here, 1 kilo used cooking oil, we have more or less 1 kilo biodiesel with several side products, but very small amount. This saves 3 kilo of CO2. So we see that this is, and then also as Ewald Marco Münzer yesterday mentioned, we should see where the food stock will go. The industry will be the driver. Who will produce the right products and not the raw materials having into a competition against each other. Next. So you see now the biodiesel production in India, and also as the Stephen from Neste mentioned, it's about 158,000 tons a year. So we see a capacity, and he mentioned 3 millions. The capacity to work will be between 1.5 and 2 millions, of course, and there is a lot of potential here. And when you sum up, so more or less, this is as Stephen mentioned, this is what was produced in the last 10 years here in India. It's what they produce in Singapore in 1 year. So I think there is a good opportunity to see what will be possible. And I think also we have to guide the supply chain, and this must not be misguided. And so thank you, Patrick, that we can talk here and explain, because this is a very big topic, and we need to find a consensus about all and what we want, and what will be possible. So this is the role of biofuels. What's the possibility for every sector? Because when we focus now, and this is just a fact only on the aviation. So what will happen to the other sectors? So how will they be able to achieve their decarbonization goal? So I think it's a kind of complement charity and not replacement, this will be the best solution. And so this is, yeah, this is what and how we do it in Mumbai. And the same as Ewald Marco Münzer mentioned yesterday, working together and not fighting against each other or not having a competition on raw materials, but because I think this will not lead us to the goal we all want to achieve, a better climate global wise. Thank you.
Although biodiesel is an aviation fuel or not so integrated, but the competition for the feedstock is the issue. And so this is something that we're going to have to look into as well in the recommendations. I'm sure there'll be some feedback from the other speakers on this. Now, the next person we'd like to hear from is Siddhartha Saha from Accents. Siddhartha, are you with us?
Yeah, Patrick, thank you very much. I'm here. I would very much have liked to be there in person, but here things at India Energy Week are also quite, hectic, and I couldn't make the trip. But very glad to join in from here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, no problem.
Okay, so I won't take long. I have my colleague Rodrigo present there. Perhaps I put in a couple of points, and then Rodrigo may also, if you allow, say a few words. So I'll just kind of reinforce maybe 3 points which have already come out in the extensive discussions that has happened so far from Accent's perspective. Accent is, as you know, a technology provider. Mr. Ramakrishna clearly said that each cog in the overall value chain needs to be very well aware of their role. So Accent is quite well aware of its role about making the right technology available with the right level of maturity, so that the entire chain can function in terms of production of fuels. So this is something we are doing. And here a point that is very important is, like Patrick, you mentioned, not to reinvent the wheel. A tremendous amount of work has been done, I would say, over last 10 or 20 years to develop and, demonstrate very complicated and very capital intensive technologies in Europe and in other parts of the world. And today, when India is embarking on the journey for producing SAF, I think this kind of interaction between you and India has a great role to play to make sure that the wheels are not reinvented. The full benefit of the work that has already been done in developing these technologies for the benefit of the entire planet are possible to be leveraged when India takes up projects in this domain. That's very important. For example, something Rodrigo might talk about is the Biofuel project. It was done under EU funding at a cost of 190 million euro to demonstrate the complete train from agricultural waste type of biomass into production of drop-in SAF and other renewable fuels. So having done that level of commitment and investment into demonstrating and maturing the technologies, I think the supply chain and the value chain in India should get the benefit of that. That's the first very important point I wanted to make. Second is basically somebody, I'm sorry, I'm not able to see everyone from here, made the point that we have to take care that it's not just about converting some feedstock into SAF, meeting quality. We have to
You can hear me, your voice broke. Maybe if you remove the video and just go on to voice.
Your voice is breaking.
Aspects of the process do not defeat the purpose of implementing SAF itself. This is a very, very important point. Now on feedstock generation, I'm sure there are people who are in that sphere of activity are taking care of providing low carbon. Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
sorry, we
Siddharth.
lost you for a bit. Yeah. Sorry, we lost him completely now.
We lost it, okay. I think we'll just have to catch up with him again later on, so the best thing is we move on and ensure that.
He's back. Just 1 second, Patrick. Siddhartha, we lost you for a bit. Maybe you can just turn on your audio and reshare your comments that you were making. Hello, Siddhartha, can you hear us?
It seems difficult, so let's just move on.
Okay, Patrick, can you hear me?
Oh, Siddhartha, you're back.
Yeah, very sorry. I mean, I won't take too long. Very sorry for the communication glitch. I was just wanted to make two more points very quickly. One is that there was a point being made about ensuring that carbon footprint of the production process as well as carbon footprint in all parts of the value chain need to be taken care of, so that the purpose of producing SAF itself its importance in lowering overall emissions is not negated. So Axens is, apart from developing the process, making the processes feasible themselves, is paying particular attention to this. So maximum effort and innovation is being mobilized into incorporating renewable energy into running the processes. So that's a key way in ensuring that the process not only converts renewable feedstock into the desired product, but does it in a way that the carbon footprint of the overall activity is lower, much lower than what it would otherwise be with fossil sources. And third point, I think that is being touched upon is the importance of regulation. This is quite, I mean, all of us agree that we need a suitable policy and regulatory framework to promote and nurture this particular activity. And in that respect, I was thinking that we, at least sitting in India, we can be quite confident that this is something that is going to happen. I mean, if Axens has been very much, the part of the previous two transportation fuel revolutions that have happened in India. If you see the way, surface transport fuels have gone from since the end of 90s, from Bharat stage 1 and onwards to BS6 very recently. All of that has been made possible by very well thought out regulation, and which brought in the right investment and right mobilization of resources at the right time to make it happen. So I'm sure Indian policymakers are keeping a close watch on the requirement, what is the commitment that is required with respect to CORSIA, what is the climate action requirements that all stakeholders are ready to put in. And then suitable, we are really looking forward to suitable policy framework coming very quickly into India, and to make these projects happen. So those are the points I wanted to make. Over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Siddhartha. Okay, our next, we're going to move away from the technology in refineries and look in more detail at what's happening at the feedstock level. And so last November, I had the privilege of visiting a biofuel park close to Bengaluru. Very, very interesting work that has been done. And also a very interesting demonstration or illustration of the kind of problems that are being faced at the level of the feedstock producer. So now we have two speakers from this. You have Professor Gowda and Professor Raghu, both from the University of Agricultural Sciences, to which the biofuel park belongs. So perhaps, Professor Gowda, did you want to start and share with us your insights?
Thank you, Patrick. I'm restricting myself to the sustainable supply chain for the feedstock. So here, what is important is
Multiple feedstock. We're not depending on any one type of feedstock, multiple feedstock. And the multi feedstock again, we have two issues. One is the biomass rate, that agri waste, and second one is the tree bone oil seeds. These are the two streams, and of course you have the two zero also. What is important for us here is the biomass, agri biomass, the logistics for collection and loading and aggregation in a place where it has been processed. It applies both for biomass as well as the TBOs. Most important is once the oil or the fuel is taken out from this, the residue what we have, it has to go back to the original land. Because we are looking at the biomass that is coming from the agricultural land or in the vicinity. And it cannot do any good to the place where it is being processed. So that means we have a transport system of the logistics payment for the feedstock from the origin to the manufacturing site. And again, knowing the nearly 60 to 70% of the biomass is not going to be used back to the land. So that needs to be worked out. And second thing is you have to have a sustainable supply of this feedstock all through the year. So when we are looking at this, we need to establish a storage system in place so that a sustained supply of the raw material is available for the industry to produce the fuel. And next thing is they say that it could be produced on site also, and also the Krishnan also mentioned whether it has to be produced nearer to the airport or at the site of the production of the biomass. I would suggest that at the site of the production of the biomass would be ideal, so that you have less cost for the transport of the fuel. So that is where we are looking at technology that is available with them. And whatever when I speak of multi-feedstock, so I have to make sure that the technology works for all these multi-feedstock. So I cannot give a feedstock which is not suitable for this particular technology. So that also needs to be looked into when we speak about the kind of feedstock that we are appreciating. So these are the major things that we need to establish. Once this is established, then we have to have a regular supply chain which is established through the farmers producers organization and also the self-help groups which are led by women. We have it in every village. At least 2 to 3 self-help groups are there. So that means they have the financial capability or they handle the finance and they are able to procure the biomass and aggregate and make it available to the user. So that is what the system that we have evolved in Karnataka, which is going to be the same across the country also. So that is one of the major things that we have to give support and establish a system for supply of foods. So these are the few things that are right.
So basically, index that technology is not a problem.
Yes.
It's really getting the finance
Yes.
together to finance this. And we've had to deal with issues like this in Europe, you know, and when you're talking about cooperatives, banks are not very good at financing cooperatives because they don't hold reserves, they don't have big profits, etc. And but we've had some success developing innovative financial products that actually are adapted to this kind of music and ultimately are delivered by banks. But this is something to come back to. I'd like Professor.
There is a technology involvement in this. Harvesting these things is not the easiest of things. So that is where the technology comes in. It's an agricultural technology, but I think yes, that one you must.
When this is more mechanical technologies, I guess.
Something like that.
Right. Okay. Very good point.
No, even the processing technologies have to be feedstock agnostic.
Yeah.
So you cannot say I can only use this feedstock and not this.
Yes.
That's the important one.
I saw lots of interesting examples of different approaches to the harvesting and the processing of different types of fruits, etc. But my feeling is that that part of the problem isn't a challenge. It's all solvable locally by engineering companies, by the universities.
Quite simple.
Yeah, this can be done.
I think their question is, who will come and set up that processing plant to produce the fuel? I mean, you know, from the different players there, somebody to come closer to a set of FPOs, which they are already aggregating. So the question is, which biofuel producer or SAF producer can come closer to their facility?
We get plenty of them if you ensure availability of oil.
Yeah.
Like chicken and egg.
Yeah.
Chicken and egg.
And sorry, Professor Raghu, were you going to say?
No, add to this one. Actually, we have fortunately have a multiple feedstock.
Yeah.
At the same time, we have opportunities to get the multiple products value chain.
Yeah.
From the same feedstock. For example, from any fruit, rather than getting only the ethanol, you can get a nutraceuticals, or even you can get some prebiotics. Like we have a diversified products can be extracted in such a way that can reduce the cost, overall cost of a or any fuel production. That is one. At the same time, byproducts, we are getting the byproducts, not only that indeed only the byproducts. For example, through pyrolysis, we may get a biochar. Right? Rather than applying only the biochar, we can give a value chain to these things. In such a way, so this we can use it as a carrier for the fertilizer or micronutrients. Like this, we have good number of opportunities in such a way that if you give value chain to this, you can make a small unit. At a rural scale, if you start processing that, we can make multiple products in such a way that it will be used for the rural populace. That is one. And second option is we can give we're going to produce the feedstock. We have to give some more research on based on the desirable quality of feedstock required for our specific desirable product. For example, for ethanol. So if you make some changes, if you have some research, research in such a way that we going to get a maximum output from the same feedstock without compromising the yield of agriculture production.
Okay.
So these are the two important points I want to add to.
No, it's excellent. And when I visited, you showed me some of the things that you have been doing. But my impression again is that, you know, so when you talk about the feedstock producers, it's a whole community with other economic needs and other economic ambitions. So they're not just providing feedstocks. And one of the stories I was told about, because of the high price of gas, the Smokeless Village project was kind of backing up. People were no longer burning the gas, they were going to burn the wood because the gas was more expensive. So having a local gas economy that would decouple you from the international black market was important for the prosperity of, you know, local communities. So this is when you're acquiring the feedstock is not just a question of showing up and saying, give us the feedstock. There's a whole complex ecosystem locally that has its own economic goals, and also lots of other projects, value-added projects, and they need finance, but they're on a much smaller scale than the scale of, you know, traditional refining projects. So this is an element of the detail that was certainly missing. I learned a lot from visiting your site, and it's one of the things that we want to try to pick up in the recommendations. The idea that financial products that are adapted to the size of the project that you need to do, because there are many of them. There will be hundreds of thousands of those all over India. It's not just one project, you know, in your area, but over the whole of India, you can imagine a really interesting, innovative financial product adapted to them. So the last.
When you think about these distributed models for biogas plants, have you done an analysis of the CapEx, the OpEx, and then also the capability to quality of supply or output oils across a large number of units, and as well as the issues of maintenance. Those are all areas where, like, you have that, like, I as an investor have big questions as soon as you start looking at these very distributed models. And it's nice from a local economic development perspective, But you end up with dramatically higher capex because you have a lot of expensive plants. You end up with higher operating costs because you have more people that have to be trained to do the same basic job. And they're not used in their full capacity. You have significantly different ability to manage quality across different plants, especially when we're using multiple feedstocks. And then you have like the cost that associated with. I think.
Well, that is my question, but I think we have answers.
No, I think those are great questions, but they come from the paradigm of scale is good. I'll give you two counterexamples to help give you a local perspective. The first counterexample is the supply chain of Amazon or Walmart, which we agree is reasonably efficient whether decarbonized or not, versus the supply chain of lunches in the city of Mumbai. Every single day, 278,000 lunches on an average are sent by people in the house to people in the office. Right? A collection of people delivered it, and their average number of errors per day of 278,000 is 0.3. It's an 8 sigma delivery done entirely manually. Right? Similarly, for the production of biodiesel, we currently produce biodiesel at 1 barrel a day. We plan to put 50,000 units up, and this has a payback of less than 4 years. It uses no electricity, and it uses no heat. Right? It's run with a single person operator, and has by far the lowest possible carbon footprint and by far the lowest validated possible cost of any fatty acid methyl ester in the world. And that's by very basic classical thermodynamics. So it's possible to downscale. In fact, you have to downscale in a system like India, because the more you upscale in a fragmented market, actually the higher your net carbon footprint. There's a sweet spot when you model it. There'll be some size that will be just right, combining the inefficiencies of capital, as you said, and the inefficiencies of potential variability of quality, with the inefficiency of the supply chain on the other side. That's why you have to dumb it down. You have to make it as easy to use at as small a scale as possible for markets like that. Very different, zero.
I mean, I've definitely seen a lot of operations European or the Indian markets doing that distributed production. And there's a lot of challenges that come with it. Borrowing the example of the lunch delivery system in Mumbai. And they do improve quality and use and whatnot, but when you're looking at wanting to produce biofuels for the sake of entering the aviation market, you do have to be able to produce at quality at scale consistently.
I'm trying to return to that point as well. So the actual answer lies in it. You have to get to an intermediate that you can produce at quality, at scale, distributed. That intermediate needs to be centralized and produced for the polishing step or the fining step. This sophisticated plant. I think nobody, whether it's Accents or whether it's any of the other stakeholders, would be comfortable buying from 50 sources, combining into it. That's not going to happen. But the person who's manufacturing the SAF, and in a sense, today we ended up focusing on SAF, we didn't talk maritime fuels, we didn't talk biomass, energy, we still do that. But for each of these, the degree of precision determines the degree of centralization. But you don't have to centralize the whole value chain. If you only centralize that point, after which the quality check.
There have been biogas policies in India before, and there's been significant subsidy by the government around these microbiogas plants. And the quality of biogas
is quite poor. I was actually active in that policy as in 1981. That was the first time I had my hands on the books. It's a while back. And the fact remains that today, in same India, we are able to talk about distributed piped natural gas quality. We have something like 6 or 7 of them now running at different points in India. And I don't think it's going to be very long before they are piped gas injectable with the appropriate safeguards. There's a committee looking at the standard of which you can do pipeline injection. I believe that that standard will be out probably by the end of the current year. And probably by the end of next year, those plants will be able to start sending to the pipeline with appropriate instrumented savings.
These are the ones that you think.
These are the
Ones that you think.
No, not necessarily. Maybe across India, it will have to be a one-size-fits-all standard. The ones in UP today don't meet that standard. Still, workers still need to upgrade the biogas, remove the contaminants, and when it hits the pipeline, it's got to be one single standard. But it will get there. Very confident.
Thanks for the questions. I mean, these are important.
These are really
addressed. Yeah. But let's, sorry, go on.
So this processing unit, say, you may have a different basis. For example, biodiesel extraction. See, rather than bringing all the seeds from village to a centralized processing unit, we'll go to have a expelling, simplify the technology for an expelling unit. It's a simple thing where you will, even farmer, a skilled farmer can be expel the oil. What we need is finally for biodiesel consumption, we need oil. So bringing entire biomass to here and sending it back again, we're going to processing phase there. Then we bring it here to maintain our quality of a biodiesel and any changes in the efficiency. We'll bring it here on this small volume, and we can process it to a centralized level. Rather than we can have a small unit at a primary processing unit. And can collectively you can go for a quality production at a large scale.
Well, my question in terms of biomass. We invested in carbon masters back when we were first starting out. We went through the process of them getting shut down because the local community didn't like the smell. If your proposal is having like one of these in every community, how do you manage? You supply long term when communities don't want the smell.
I think whether it's biogas or biodiesel or we'll have to take you around to some of these places where the communities themselves see the value. So, for example, in biodiesel, why people are adopting the 1 barrel a day plants today? This farmer in the vicinity of this airport, 20 miles from here, there's a place called Bengaluru. I'm a farmer there. I would actually have to drive to my gas station, fill my tractor, come back. For every 30-liter fill, I spend 4 liters coming and going. When the farmer says he's able to produce his own diesel for the tractor, it's not only the 4 liters he saved, but the opportunity cost benefit is immense. He is also being trained to learn that if your quality is not right, it's going to mess up your tractor. And for a farmer, the tractor is a livelihood. It's not going to miss. So these come from a lot of social engineering. And I think the questions you raise are really valid because you need to be aware of the red flags in order to resolve the red flags. If you pretend they're not there, you don't resolve.
We have to factor in one more thing. You don't really have to make biodiesel out of it if you want to use it in tractor. The straight vegetable oil from this TBU can be easily mixed after preliminary cleaning. Can be easily mixed up to 20% without effect. In fact, improves the performance of the tractor. For stationary and low RPM applications, straight vegetable oils are very suitable. You really don't have to convert it into diesel stock. So, I'm
going to stop that there, even though there's scope to drill into this further, and hopefully we will do this in the future.
Yeah, I know.
But I want to bring in our last speaker, Mona Sharuja. So thank you for agreeing to come. I know you have a lot of interesting experience as well in everything feedstock.
So thanks so much. So the perspective, couple of things, and I think good deliberations. First things first, how I would like to look at it is the price at which SAF is produced in the best efficient manner should be produced and by regulation should be mandated. Thereby, the process of we want it at a price that is equivalent to what we are getting today, but we don't know what will be tomorrow because somebody else globally in the market is controlling it, and somebody else fighting a war would ensure that it goes up double. but we still continue to pay for it. So why don't we have a product which we manufacture in a transparent manner globally at the most cost-effective price, and by regulation should be mandated? So that's one. The second is there are 3 routes which have been discussed, and so be it. The most efficient route should find space in the global community, should be taken ahead. So where are we with all the 3 routes in terms of pricing? There is the UCO route, pretty standard today. You can produce SAF out of it. You can produce biodiesel out of it. Where is it the buck for energy would happen? And we saw it would happen on the transportation sector, and hence easier to do, easier to deliver on the energy basis and allow it to move there. So find consensus. Don't compete for the same product for multiple users. If you look at the free burn oil route, again, a standard process today, we require scale. And let's put projects of scale. What's going to be the supply chain management route continues to be the process. There are commercially demonstrated processes of supply chain management, be it private sector, be it public sector, or the cooperative sector. You take milk, the Amul cooperative sector, one of the most successful models and the largest in India. You take what the Karnataka Association is doing, they're putting that in place. And you take private sector like us working in 18 states across India today, we continue to grow on the volumes. So how do you de-risk the availability of feedstock is the paramount question. Who's willing to take that risk? If a cooperative sector is willing to take that risk, allow it to happen there. If the farmer is willing to take that risk, allow it to happen there. At least the way I see it, in the initial phase, the banks and financial institutions are not going to ride the risk for small cooperatives, for small farmers, and hence you would need either an aggregator or a public-private partnership model to be able to get this moving. So we need such aggregator companies, and this could be the project proponent themselves. It could be a technology player, it could be a PPP model, but ownership of the feedstock in the right quality quantity will need to be taken. And that typically means you're transferring the risk of feedstock on the supply chain management partner. And thereby, you are now going to test out a significantly higher price because you're transferring the risk. So where do you want to house the risk of the feedstock? With the project or with the supply chain management partner? And depending on that, you need to find a sweet spot for the pricing of feedstock. The decentralized feedstock pricing is highly predictable. It doesn't change as it changes on an unpredictable global energy pricing. So if you are going to base it, let's say on UCO, or let's say on tree-borne seeds, or even farm agri residue, you have a pretty standard feedstock pricing which you can give for a 5 to 10 year basis, because you're operating in a decentralized manner. And hence, if you look at a life cycle operating cost or a cost of product over a 20-year of a SAF plant you're going to set up, you can be rest assured you will be cheaper on the decentralized feedstock rather than postulating the cost of SAF, which you can have the last 20 years, where you would end up being. Lastly, where is the carbon pricing? Where is the pricing for clean molecule? And if that pricing finds agreement under the Corsa agreement, under the Global Alliance, under the G20 Alliance, thereby ultimately the consumer has to pay. So the airlines are going to pass it to the consumer. And the consumer who's typically flying is an affluent consumer who doesn't mind paying the 300 rupees more. In fact, has no control over it. So allow that to get passed by regulation, and let's push the envelope over there. Now coming to the feedstock supply chain management. I think the banks continue to be averse to fund this segment as a standalone activity. It's easier for the financial institutions to piggyback ride the asset that they see, which is going to be a couple of $100 million, and thereby, the 20, 30, $40 million required on feedstock supply chain management is a pass-through. But if you start going to banks for aggregators to get this feedstock capital, it is a very tough call. So the way to look at it is a partnership there. Have a preferred feedstock partner. Get the project to be part there and maybe vice versa. And set up that ecosystem for the feedstock to be available for this SAF plants. I think what Neste presented, Singapore as a market, they're only converting it there. And if you look at the price point, inefficient manner of conversion. You're getting feedstock from somewhere, converting it because there are some tax incentives and providing it to the market. So take the plant closer to the feedstock would be one. Move the product, maybe pipeline based would be easier. And get the financing mechanism for the entire ecosystem in one go, not in bits and pieces, including the supply chain management, and it could be any of the routes. Pause here. Thank you.
Well, here we have the risk issue, again, the incentives, the regulation. We keep coming back to these key issues, which are not.
So many stakeholders here have been part of the World Economic Forum study. We have also been part of it, and we have participated in 4 of the 6 chapters, which the Indian minister has accepted. The Civil Aviation Ministry has accepted. The Petroleum Ministry has accepted. So if you look at the routes there, with the SAF scale wanted, and hopefully we achieve that scale, biomass is going to be the most predominant way, at least for the Indian markets, from a feedstock perspective. So if the future is biomass, why don't we start as of yesterday? Right? So if we want the scale of the numbers of 30% change, 40% change, you have no option but to do biomass. So let's drive the technology research towards that segment, because that's going to give you the future scale, and that's going to give you the price which is going to be lower than the other forms. So that's how the decision making, that's where the policy makers or the initial capital flow has to decide which route to take. Thanks.
I think we're coming towards the moment where we need to wrap up, and Pirik has run away.
Yeah, you can add a few points, Patrick.
So,
and also, Lakshmi Narayan, would you want to say something from?
Enough for most of the eminent speakers of.
Yeah.
In terms of scale and volume, when I talk about, was just looking at some of the deals and then asked for some info. Last month at BIAL, we have used 80% kiloliters of jet fuel. If I keep that number as today's number, where the traffic is around 100,000 plus every day, we are getting up close to 1 million kiloliters. And if we have committed something like 10% as this SAF, that turns out to be 100,000 kiloliters. Even with the oil price numbers, that turns out to be something like 1,000 to 1,100 per kilo. Now, this is the scale available, where we have committed that SAF is a requirement, and then we will be turning into SAF for 10%, etc. There could be some players who can work with us, who can look at this number. And also, I can assure you that if this is coming, and as a byproduct, if I get fuel for my vehicle also, we are running a lot of ground vehicles. While we are talking about SAF, I have lots of ground vehicles. It could be something together. So there is a good market available as such. But the quality, the consistency, the availability. This, if it is made available, we are willing to take the chance. We can go to the management, we can identify place for certain things within the airport itself. Thanks. Because that scale, when I'm looking at the number is my point. I'm looking at not less than 150 billion USD per annum. Is the requirement at 10%. If SpiceJet says that they are using 25%, and if that 25% is going to be a reality in the quality and then the blend mix which is accepted by the engine people or the aircraft people, the volume is pretty high.
Kyriakos, you had your hand up.
Yes, first of all, just if you don't know me, I'm Japanese. I used to go to the European Commission for about years. And back in 2011, I started the first action about biofuels for aviation. It was all those days.
Atta, can you hear?
I have a suggestion. Come and
Yeah, come sit here. Yeah, exactly. You're a little far away. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm not trying to take too much of your time. So in 2011, we started an action which was called Biofuels Flight Path in Aviation. For the first time, we put the technology developers, Neste was there, and we put the airlines, Lufthansa, KLM in France, Airbus was over there, and we started discussing how we're going to move forward with aviation, with sustainable aviation fuels. The discussion I heard here today, it was very similar to the discussion in 2011. Now, of course, it's a completely different level. There's progress on technology, there's progress on feedstock supply, there's progress on fuel quality. If I look to the area, there are three topics in the value chain. One is the quality of the fuel. The other is the conversion of the biomass. And the third one is the sustainable production of biomass. And above that, we have the legislation and, let's say, directives or whatever you want to call it. And this is the most complex. It is very cloudy. In Europe, it's rainy. Here, it is more clear. Now, from these three areas, the quality of the fuel is the most clear. And I'm going to repeat what Mr. Ramakrishna said. We have the STM standards. Here you have more or less copy-paste them into Indian standards. The airlines, you don't have to worry about what's going to happen if your plane puts in sustainable aviation fuel with a certification that meets the standard. So we shouldn't worry too much about that. We should move to the next one. And the next one is conversion of the technologies. There you have the hydrotreated vegetable oils, and this is commercial. It's working very well. There's some other technology they are developing, and they're approaching the commercialization, which is, let's say, ethanol to SAF. You have also fisotropes, synthetic biofuels to SAF. They're also approaching commercialization. So this again is on good way. The more complex area is the sustainable feedstock production. And as Moni said, that's the area that should be developed better and in Europe and here in India. Because the others, they will follow. But if you have your biomass, you'll be able to convert it either to ethanol, ethanol, or let's say in the short term, you will be able to convert to fisotropes. But sometimes, if we try to put that all the discussions simultaneously, it's getting confused. We repeat the same thing while there is some clarity, at least from my perspective. You have the fuel quality, if you meet it, no problem. And also on the feedstock, if you meet the sustainability criteria of the feedstock production, you also have a kind of certainty that if I use that feedstock, it's going to be sustainable. So we should try to, in a way, simplify the discussions and say, okay, quality we have. Can we improve the quality? Can we have a new value chain? That's important. Let's work on that. Technologies we have. You have a very good examples here in India. You have developed your own technology. We've done the same in Europe. They've done the same in the US. So globally, the technology is progressing. The fuel, the biomass remains the critical point that we need more, let's say, clarity on how to produce. We need better technologies, better understanding of how to work with the farmer. And of course, last but not least, the cloud above all that thing needs much, much more. It has to disappear to get the sun. Otherwise, we're not going to move. At least in Europe, we're not moving. We're stuck. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, when talking about the feedstock supply chain, our focus more has been on the kind of wasted resources that are already there. But I think in the last couple of days, we are not discussed much about how we can generate more feedstock. So this is where I think India can play a very significant role. When we are talking about wasted resources, the most wasted resources in India is the land. We have more than 50% of our land, which is arable land. And if you really look at that 195 million hectares of land, how that is being used, only about 50 million hectares of land we grow more than 2 crops, more than 1 crop. And then we have something like 145 million hectares of land where we grow only 1 crop during the monsoon, which means that the land has been left barren for almost 7 months in a year. So can we think in terms of utilizing this land where we can grow. When we talk about TBO has a long gestation. But can we think in terms of something, an oil seed crop which you can grow in 4 months' time, 4 or 5 months' time? Within 5 months, the farmer can get, some income for doing something on his land. And then on the energy crops, like Brazil has done tremendous amount of work on energy cane. We have an answer here in India, and the amount of work that we have done on sweet sorghum is probably at the same level as that of energy cane in Brazil. So all we really need to look at is different kind of oilseed crops, different kind of cultivars of whether it is sweet sorghum or pearl millet, whatever it is, for different geoclimatic zones. Can we think in terms of making use of the wasted land resources, involving the community to grow more feedstock? If you are able to put a good program together to make use of the wasted resources and involving the community, let me tell you that we will have enough to meet our own requirement in India. And India, after having met its energy requirement, can be a very big exporter of feedstock for the rest of the world too. And this is one thing that we really need to look into. And there is always a resistance on the part of the government when we talk about involving the community part of it. They think that the policy, once it is made, the industry is going to take over and things are going to happen. Now, with regard to biomass, it's not going to happen. It is very important and very critical for the success of the bioenergy program. We involve the community and consider the farming community as a very important stakeholder in the entire program. As long as we don't do that, this program is not going to go anywhere. I would have appreciated if there were at least 3 farmers sitting here and discussing these issues. Don't have it. By default, I am a farmer and he is a farmer. By default, we are here, but we are not talking about the farming issues. So it is very important that we look into that dimension also when we are talking about meeting our feedstock.
Out of curiosity, what looks are you doing at making sure there's water sustainability as well? What is the crops to be water intensive?
There are quite a few challenges, but then we need to really have right kind of interventions to make sure that the wasted resources are really taken care of. I mean, it's not only water. We also have issues, like the labor. People are migrating from the villages. To get work done at village is a big challenge today. So there are a lot of interventions that are required. It's the right kind of intervention. We can really make sure that we can produce more.
I'm going to stop everybody there because we're coming to the end, and at some point, Peter gets to look to the airport. So I want to move him till he gets a chance to do that. And I totally agree with this point here. We have a lot of things in common. In Europe, we have the concept of the long-term vision for rural areas. It's all about optimal use of the land. It's all about carbon capture. It's about rural communities being part of this new emerging economy. But this is something that we develop in other ways. So what we have on the table, and in line with what the actors have already do, to divide things out and isolate the problems and drill down in a bit more detail rather than trying to do everything at once. We've made a number of, we have a piece of paper here with 3 recommendations. Roughly, one of them has to do with the financing, the small scale financing at the feedstock level. I won't go into more detail, just to let you know that it's a finance network. And the idea is that we bring the people who need the money around the table with the bankers and development associations, and also building on some of the experiences we've had, successful experiences in Europe in finding solutions to those problems. So that's one kind of a multi-stakeholder forum where we can move ahead on that. The other one has to do with the whole issue of regulations, incentives, etc. There's been a lot of discussions about that. And it's worthwhile having a whole other discussion on that, because it's something that arises in all of the different parts of the supply chain as well. You could have legislation and targets at local level, you could have it at the level of the airlines and the airports, but it's a big topic once you get into it, and it deserves a separate treatment with the right kind of experts around the table and the people who can act on the recommendations as well. So that's the second one. And the third one has to do with this whole issue of the carbon reporting and the footprint. The idea that you chemically identical samples, but they have very different carbon footprints. You stick one of them in a truck and then you take it halfway around the world and has another carbon footprint again. And so we need a system, and it's not only us, but consumers in Norway need a system so that when they buy a good that is gone by ship or airplane from wherever in the world, they have a reasonable idea of what the carbon footprint is to inform their purchases. So that's the whole carbon reporting thing, which also means impact on natural resources, fair treatment of farmers and rural communities. This is needed by the biggest corporations when they do their ESG reporting. There are protocols, but the detail isn't there to connect what happens in feedstock producers in local villages to consumers at the other end of the world. So they're really the three recommendations. And Derek has been warned ahead that we're going to grill him on this, but Varun, do you have some comments that you need to make on anything that we might have missed or?
No, I think there's a lot. It's you know, it actually requires a lot of multi-stakeholder engagement, and indeed it requires more of like we're talking about the process side of it. That we need to decentralize it. We need to decentralize this group and have more smaller working groups to identify the issues. According to me, what I understand today, and I learned a lot from you, and some of these points you've captured well in the information document. The demand side, which is the offtake side, is sorted. Yeah, we all know that there is a demand, and what they need is a good price point, and what they need is a certification and a global acceptance to a particular.
What I need is the oil.
Exactly. With these three elements, keeping in mind the sustainability element, because individual companies will also be focusing on their own ESG compliances. I think to evolve this whole dialogue to next level, all working groups are required, and we have to set some achievable targets in terms of recommendations at working group level, and then actually see this whole idea taking to industrialization level. That's another point. But I think one area there are a lot of pain points when it comes to supply side. One is access to finance, aggregation of suppliers, coexistence of food feedstocks, decentralization of technologies, and I would usually agree at the regional framework, political, socio-economical, political framework in India is playing a very active role in that as well. How crucially farmers are responding to this. So creating local economics is very important if we want to make sure that the supply chain is aggressive towards achieving what we want to achieve. Then comes the technology part of it. The process side is sorted that the technologies can coexist. And then comes the pain point again comes with the financing. The technology is sorted. Financing side, I think a lot to be achieved. It's also said by the aggregators. If an off-taker is having a committed off-take, you need the committed off-take. It solves a lot of problems when it comes to the financial value chain. If you have a committed off-take for supply side as well, the airline side and the supply side, it takes care of a lot of issues and challenges of the supply chain. Then you need to bring it and blend it with microfinancing and blend it with ideas of local economies where we are trying to create, like Sir said, creating a local economy that I'm doing fuel for aviation. Why can't I also look at something for my vehicles? So creating a local decentralized economy first. And I think all these three layers are complemented by the carbon markets, the ESG norms, which companies are following. It is, and one more important element here is the efficiency of all the processes. So we need to also continuously work on the efficiency side. Professor Anjan Ray has already mentioned that there cannot be one technology or there cannot be just one thought process that okay, this will evolve globally. The efficiency of that process is very important. Otherwise, we're not achieving what we're trying to achieve in terms of decarbonization. We're just creating an alternate fuel which might just evolve and change to something else in 3 years or so. Technology is changing and the life cycle is changing very fast. I gave the example of auto sector. There's a lot of huge investments in plug-in hybrid, which probably we don't see much now. That market is not. So I think similarly, this sector will also evolve. So I suggest 2 recommendations are because then we have use case scenarios which definitely enables a lot of action and then we define very achievable targets which could be like GMR mentioned, project specific targets as well, which is good to together can contribute. Coexist is need, but maybe we're not directly linked to that project, but there can also offer the support, we cannot coexist for a knowledge point of view, and I think that's where you have done a great job by bringing all of us together today. Thank you, Eric and again, Meena, for this. I think this is good, but and last, after the raised bringing the farmers on board as well. So I would suggest maybe in the larger group, if we can also get cooperatives, which there is a very good structure available to join and then understand the local pain points, and they can also join this group. I'll stop here because I think a lot has been discussed. Eric, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much to all of you. I just have two clear points. So first, in terms of deadline, we will link with all of you, including with the colleagues online, to try to find some common thread. What I can assure you is that at the EU level, it's a serious area. Kyriakos has been in the shop. He knows how serious we want to engage, especially with India. Early June, we very likely will have a G2G Gov meeting in Delhi. We will try to involve you as well, so that you meet us from government side. The date is not yet fixed, but it will be between the 5th and the 10th of June. What I can tell you very concretely is true, and Ramakrishna mentioned the issue of farmers. We have not yet approached, because we are coming from the technology side, Ministry of Agriculture, but it's something maybe with your support that we should do, but they are not my common, they are not our common colleagues. Especially, usually Ministry of Agriculture are not used to international cooperation. So they are mastering on their constituency, like in Europe, you have Ministry of Agriculture, they work for European stakeholders, and the same. But for them to think international, maybe it's a difficult step. Number two, I recall, Arjan, you introduced me, we met Junior Secretary Kumar from the Ministry of Petroleum. I met him yesterday. I was a little bit puzzled because he said, yes, India, we are good. We are going to have a strategy in May on SAF. Today, I did not hear anything on the government strategy on SAF. But apparently, he said that he would promise something. When we on the side put the regulation, the strategy, it has to be discussed before. So I am surprised that none of the India colleagues mentioned it. If it's coming in 3 months, it's not discussed, or okay, where are you? I need to know. I leave the question on the table. I appreciate it to speak with the airports, with the airlines. At least from a European perspective, we want you on board. And we will extend the cycle of airlines and airports we can involve, because we believe it's a solution, especially as Frederic and the colleagues of Airbus mentioned. There are some existing bilateral projects, like you mentioned the one with France. There are others with other EU countries. So it's not only EU at the central level, it's also what the member states are doing with their own economic and value chain of actors. So I'm linking slowly with embassies, and those embassies, French and the Dutch and so on, will be involved on the G2G meeting in Delhi. And the G2G meeting is going to be a little bit that scale, because I like small sales meeting in order that we come with something feasible. So thank you very much. Last item, I want to do some testing for Kyriakos. Tomorrow you are organizing a workshop at Hyatt Centric. So maybe you can pass the agenda to everybody.
Yes, therefore, let's close door. It's a initiative by the EV delegation and DGL on site and the Ministry of Natural Gas on the other side. Basically, we're establishing what's called the stakeholders group on Biofuels. We're going to be a team with small team for the experts, 7 from the EU side and 7 from the Indian side. And we're going to be focusing on the same topic that we work together, but not only focusing on aviation, we're going to be wider on part of Biofuels, whether they go road, aviation, maritime, or into transport. So, I'm sorry, it's going to be closed down by
keep us informed.
Sorry.
Keep us informed.
Absolutely. I mean, Patrick is going to be there.
Yes.
He's going as a sponsor of what we're doing.
So, yeah, for the rest, you know very well, what's going on.
Yes. Yes. So just to close, it means we have set a number of initiatives at the EU side. We have the bilateral by the member states, by the EU itself, by the stakeholders from private sector. So sometimes we need to collect all together. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for the questions on the financing aspect. We are not yet there. Thank you to Lena and Patrick and Santin. So we will keep you informed. We have a few documents, I believe. We can put it on a SharePoint. But very completely, Patrick is in India for 1 more week. I believe we have to come back with something more formalized to fix the dates in June. And able to work from there. So that's it on my side. Thanks a lot to all of you. As Anjan said, it's a big family. But when I look at India, I say it's a huge, big family. I also, one last point, I have some project on biofuel aviation with Japan. So, and I have approached GUE, as Lina mentioned, and Brazil. So I need to exchange note as a government officer. So it's something maybe we have to put in the background of what we do. It's not only EU, India, it's principally because my financing instrument is EU, India, but we can bring on the picture Brazil. Or, so if you also happen to have a bilateral with Brazil, with Japan, with US, we can bring them. We have a extremely flexible. I didn't introduce the cores, the money itself, because I know nobody wants money here. But the cores that we have at the EU level are extremely flexible. It means same as now India is in the game, US is in the game because it got money. And Brazil and Japan. So Japan is already there on aviation. I have 3 projects. GUE is going to jump. So next time, and we can already share also information on the course. We can share the description of the course so that you get familiar. And maybe next time in June, we can present the core. What is the core? How is the proposal done? Probably colleagues from Airbus, from Europe, they know how we do calls, but maybe you colleagues from India know a little bit less how to jump in the call. So thank you very much. Namaste. So you want to say a few words?
I think we've all said a lot. Really, thank you. Thank you for for joining us and for your time today and all your contributions. And we're going to be in touch. We will just to discuss the next steps and definitely get a report on what's going to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to finish by today is 8:10.